Anti-establishment historians tend to be an unpopular lot, and my own works will undoubtedly serve to reinforce this attitude by those who have published garbage adorned as history. It is my intent to make enemies, to topple their cherished pillars, to silence those charlatans who have sold their fictions off as facts. My mission is to educate those willing to know. I have no doubt I will lock horns with many along the way. The materials that I offer in my books are for those who are unafraid of the dark, who want the truth undiluted, direct. The ancient past, behind the scenes happenings throughout all time periods, censored histories, the academic cover-ups, real facts about race, religion, subversive societies, and even predictive systems of analysis by which future events can be known beforehand or uncovered and explained. Archaix is for the public domain to come to a place where they can receive information that has not been diluted. It has not been censored. You're not going to like some of the things you hear. Some of the many videos are going to tick you off. They're disturbing. The core things that we have been taught since we were introduced into this world have to be peeled back layer by layer by layer for us to fully comprehend the absolute medium of deception that we are totally immersed within. Our world is not what you think it is, but it is a beautiful place. It's all a matter of perception. But where we've been in the past in the collective, as a species, as a race, and where we have traveled in the past up until the present, in our personal lives, has everything to do with where we're going. One who is properly informed is not easily deceived. The fact that so much energy has been expended in covering up the truth about our past can only mean that, though we are blind to it, we must be such a threat to our controllers that burying the past was the only recourse they had in maintaining their power. Or, said another way, we are more than we suppose ourselves to be. Let's get that audio check done. I'm going to move that. Cool. Thank you, G Lancer. I got a lot of intros. That's a pretty good one. Woot woot. All right, good. Crystal clear. I think it'll stay crystal clear like this for a while. Epic presentation, guys. This one took some preparation because I had to go get all these images. Great audio. I'm leaning forward in my seat. I'm so excited about this one. Beautiful day here in Central East Texas. Beautiful day. Okay. Somebody mentioned the paranormies. I think I sent them an email recently. I gotta check. I gotta check with Big John. I'm not trying to ignore them. I am Rise Above. I'm doing something with them pretty soon. Tomorrow I'm gonna have Micah Dank on the channel, astrotheologist. He and I have kind of gone back and forth in the past. You know, I disagree with some things, you know, I've been hearing in astrotheology, but then again, he could change my mind. We'll see. Regardless of our positions, everybody who's invited onto Archaix will be treated with the utmost respect. But several people have been hitting me up about him, so we will. He does have a video on Archaix TV. He does have a video on Archaix TV, but I just don't really know much about the man. We will be introduced to him and his material tomorrow. I believe it's a late video, like 5 p.m. So those of you who are subscribed to Cypher, you got emails today. More power to you. I'll be working on that too tonight and tomorrow. Houston meetup on the 24th. Moderators, please provide that email for them to register. And May 17th, UK. Before the Houston meetup, I will be live in spirit. That's a good way to put it. I'll be live in spirit with Ali and Danny and the Archaix in the UK. Other than that, thank you for the Houston meetup deal. Also, from the other day, I can't remember, guys, which email the mods are supposed to use, but the moderators, there's an email for the moderators. Please post that. Those with the blue wrench, because we have something right you're gonna want. We're sending it out. We're just showing some appreciation to our moderators. It's a present. Let's see. Not a box full of Archaix merchandise and all that. We did that last time. This is an actual monetary gift card, just showing appreciation for what you do. This is for the moderators. We got a lot of moderators here, so okay. See, I think that's it. Micah Dank tomorrow. Cypher sports predictions. A bunch of personal predictions were done the other day. Sports predictions were released this morning, and more sports predictions Friday, Saturday, and Sunday coming. Houston meetup, the May 17th meetup in the UK. Just a bunch of errands getting together. People from the Unfuckers group, and then I will be on screen. It's going to be in a public, I believe, a pub. And that's about it. That's about it. We have an errand ad, and then we need to get straight into this video because, like I said, it's totally unscripted. This is totally a free flow video. I'm just telling you my experience, how the Archaix database came to pass, how I made these conclusions, where this data came from. I'm going to show it to you. I said it's overwhelming. It really is. So we're going to get to it. Why is that so bright over there? All right. Let's do it. Because once I start my flow, I'm not stopping. We're going straight through about 400 or 500 pictures. You're going to understand after the end of this video how it was accomplished, how it was done. You're going to realize, damn, Archaix has only been on YouTube about 5 years. But shit, this chronology and all was put together after 20 years of research. All right. So we have an errant ad sponsored for the video. In the description box, you'll get her links. You'll get her basically what she's about, contact information and all that. But let's introduce our errant ad sponsor for this video.
I'm a naturopathic doctor at thrivenaturallywellness.com. I'm here to help you with natural solutions to your health issues. I help you critically assess what's going on. In other words, I help you cut through the BS. I also specialize in connective tissue disorders. You can reach me at thrivenaturallywellness.com. Thanks.
I wonder if she's talking about morgllins, or what is that strange disorder on the skin? I don't remember. But that's going to be added to the file. We'll see that again at the end of the video, and it will be added to the file of all the errant ads that will be permanently posted on the new revamped Archaix Nexus, Archaix website. So, let's see. Somebody bothering me. I need to. All right. So hey Ian just messaged me. I don't know anything about it. I've already discoursed with the man, and I've already given him the email contact. I have no idea about Flat Earth Dave. He's more than welcome on the channel, but I haven't heard. He's radio silence. All right. He's a busy man. He's a busy man. Somebody just asked me about Flat Earth Dave. Yeah, he and I have already talked and agreed that we're gonna have a blast. Come on the channel, but he's busy. We're just trying to get our schedules right. All right. So, my friends, let us get straight into it. I'm gonna get all this for this. So, if you noticed, I've been doing summation videos. I've been showing different videos from different vantage points of the Archaix Chronology, basically this vast database, because it needs to be scrutinized. It needs to be peer reviewed. It needs to, I need that type of a theory. A theory is only as strong as its enemies. So I tell you guys all the time, I'm looking for it. Where are you at? I hear all these people's opinions, and I hear on social media people they throw these things sideways out their mouth. A lot of them don't have the guts to mention Jason of Archaix because they don't want the blowback, because they'll get it. But I get the video clips and I see what's going on. But you know what? It's people. It's very easy to be a podcaster. It is the easiest thing to do in social media is to be a critic, is to be a debunker. It is the easiest thing in the world to say, I don't believe something. But these guys aren't showing why they don't believe something. And this is my problem with them. Yeah, I'm not done with the call outs, guys. I got a lot of names on the list that they think they've gotten away. They're not. I just haven't been mentioning them. I've been focused on Graham Hancock, focused on Randall Carlson, focused on Jimmy Corsetti, Matt LaCroix, focused on for a while there, I can't remember, Jay Dreamers, Jason Tice. But you know what? They've already proven to me that their silence is omission. You have a problem with if you have a problem with the theory, all you got to do is dismantle it. It's really simple. If your position is true, you should be able to demonstrate it, because I have. Simple as that. So this video, I'm going to show you how it was all put together. And by the end of this video, you're going to realize why there has been not one single challenge to the Archaix thesis. Not one. I'm not talking about somebody's opinion. A true challenge comes with the facts. No one's posted any videos challenging Archaix thesis. They just, I'm gonna use Graham Hancock's terminology. They just niggle. They just niggle at this and they niggle at that. Man, you get your niggling Atlantis wannabe ass off the screen. The age of Graham Hancock is over. And he did it to himself. More and more and more people are waking up to that Nickelodeon Facebook version of history. It's stupid. But anybody can be a critic. It's the easiest position to take. And podcasters who set themselves up as debunkers, I'm going to start calling them out too. Yeah. All they got to do is even hint that they're referring to my research, and I'm going to call them out. Because debunking something, if you put yourself into the position of trying to debunk something, you better come with the receipts. Because if you don't, you're going to be made to look like an 8th grader. Because that's all it takes. It takes an 8th grade education to say you don't believe in something, and then convince a whole bunch of mindless twits all out there in social media listening to you. Yeah, it's very easy. But so few actually show why something is wrong. And that's the key component here. If you can't show why something is wrong, it's just an opinion. That's it. Yeah. Wasn't it Berkeley who said that all men think? No, excuse me. What is it? Few men think. Few men think, but all have opinions. That was Berkeley. So let's get to it. So I find myself in prison, and I have many videos explaining all that. That's not the subject matter here. But I find myself in prison, and I work myself toward maximum security. I did that to myself. So while I'm there, I'm still a Christian. I was raised a Christian, Southern Baptist, twice baptized. I'm the only guy in an all-girls choir, and I'm traveling. My mother was in charge of Mercy Heart Ministries, Southern Baptist to the core. She trained me to be that way too. This was my upbringing. Just because I got in trouble at 17 years old doesn't mean I stopped being a Christian. I was a Christian at 18 years old, 19 years old, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. But during this period, I was also absorbing information, but I was doing the same thing Christians do today. I was ignoring the entire world of phenomena. I was ignoring the entire population of authors and researchers that were bringing things to the table in order to maintain my one focus, which was, I'm washed in the blood of the Lamb. I'm a servant of the Most High God. I'm a child. I'm a child of the Creator, and I'm washed in the blood of the Lamb. And I adopted all those same human sacrifice phrases from the old Bronze Age that has been attributed to every solar deity. But I thought Christianity was different. So I'm reading the spiritual material in the New Testament, and I'm taking my feelings for his fidelity. I am going through this material, and I'm feeling what all Christians feel. I'm going through the words of Jesus, and I'm like, wow, this is so profound. And I'm automatically attributing the feeling that I'm getting from spiritual material, the parables, what Jesus' actual words, and I'm falling for the psyop of the word made flesh. They told me the truth, and I still ignored it. The word was made flesh. I just didn't see it back then. I took the spiritual feeling that I was getting from reading my Bible, because I read it so many times in prison. And I'm taking the spiritual feeling, and then I'm going into the narrative, the parts where men added in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth centuries AD. All these historical anecdotes and all this stuff that was added to the story, which was originally laid out scene by scene by scene by scene. Like curtains open, here's a scene. Curtains open, he's already moved 350 miles. He's here. It's a scene. This is exactly how the gospel reads. Matthew, Mark, and Luke and John read just like a Greek stage play, just like Act 1 in a Greek amphitheater, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, but I don't see it at the time. Instead, I see what my Southern Baptist preachers and my pen pals and my pastor have taught me to see. I'm seeing the scriptures through the lens of those who don't want me to see everything else. And I'm washed in the blood of the Lamb, and I'm a Christian, and I get convicted when I do things. And it doesn't matter my environment's in prison. I'm still a product of the times. I'm still immersed in prison culture, but I'm still guided by these principles, these morals, these ethics. They're very strong in me. Even in prison, it stood me apart. I stood apart from everyone for many reasons. One, I was so young when I went in, and I was a scrapper, so people didn't like trying to, try to join this, come do this. I said, because I learned at an early age that an ass whooping is over in seconds, but a wrong decision can affect you for months and even years. So it's nothing to me if somebody got in my face and said something I didn't like, or if I didn't understand. If I didn't understand something, I knew, because guys that raised me in prison told me, I said, man, if anybody's in your face saying something, and you start getting that bad feeling and you're just not understanding, there's one thing you can always do. There's one thing you can always do, and it's going to let everybody understand your position. I'm like, man, what is that, man? So, man, just hit him in the face. Like, what? Just hit him in the face. If anybody is saying something that you just don't understand, or you have a bad vibe about it, it's because they're not coming to you straight. You're getting that bad feeling because there's game involved, there's deception involved, and they're trying to get you to accept one thing, so it makes you automatically put you into a situation where your alternatives are all of a sudden minimized. Everything in prison is a psyop. Everything in prison is a calculated deceit. And Prison isn't the worst thing about prison isn't violence. The worst thing about prison is these guys have nothing better to do than to try to run deceptions on you and make you happy about it. Make you feel like it's your decision, that you decided to do this. It gives them the moral high ground later. Prison is full of this type of subterfuge. It's everywhere. So I had really come into contact with some good guys early on who were schooling me and telling me all these things. And it just got to the point where somebody would be in my face talking about something. Hey man, and I realized, oh, this is good. This is leading toward a commissary conversation. This is leading toward loan me this and all that. And I just didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't have the prison parlance. I didn't have the things at 17 and 18 and 19 years old. I did not have the tools necessary to navigate in an adult prison system where these guys have been in prison 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You don't understand. Texas had no classification system in 1990. In 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, when I'm a teenager and I'm a kid, Texas did not classify prisoners like they do today. And the prison system was only 40,000 men. Now it's 170,000 men. And all the prisons were old and dilapidated and had these fantastic old libraries. It's not like that anymore. They built 106 prisons in 4 years. And now everybody's spread out. And it's such a different environment now. But when I first entered prison, it's just, hey, man, hey, Jason, check this out. That's another thing you need to know about me. Everybody from Texas prison that knows that I'm one of the few guys that never went by a nickname. Jason was my name to prison administrators, prison staff and guards, and to the entire inmate population. I've never taken a nickname. I didn't like them. I was always Jason. And that's what I was known by. And early on, people would come up, hey man, and if I didn't understand what they were talking about, just like that. Sometimes it was a misunderstanding. Sometimes dudes beat my ass. Sometimes the word spread like wildfire. Hey man, just don't even approach that dude. He's going to misunderstand you. He's going to think you're trying to run game on him. And his only defense is he's just going to hit you in the mouth. So this is what happened. My early years were my formative years. And I realized, damn, the only way I'm going to protect myself in here is just not accept a damn thing coming out of anybody's mouth. And just do my own shit. So I got a reputation really fast. Damn, he's a hothead. Damn, he's you can't even talk to him. But all those who wanted to do me wrong got the message too. They got the message early on. Those guys who schooled me in my early years did me a favor because it allowed me to walk through the rest of my life understanding that there isn't shit that you can do to me that I fear at all. I've never feared anything to happen to my body. I have laughed when prison guards put their sticks on me. And I was laughing because I was openly disrespecting them, that the only reason you're doing this is because you're not going to fist fight me straight up. And I would make them so mad and so pissed off. I used to tell prison guards, I used to say, the only reason that you're even talking shit to me is because you guys can put me in a cell back here and beat me up with a bunch of sticks. But one-on-one, if we were in a Walmart parking lot, I would flatweed your dumb ass. So this would piss them off, but I would only say it when they provoked it. I was really a peaceful guy, minding my own business. All I ever wanted to do was read a book. That's all I wanted to do in prison, is read a book. And all the trouble I ever got in prison was because other people were coming into my field. And the only defense I really knew was in case this is leading somewhere I don't want to go, I can chop it off right now because a simple fight will kill anything. It's the one thing that prisoners understand the most. They understand it the most. And it was nothing to me because I realized early on that in a fight, I don't even feel anything until the fight is over with. The fight's over with. That's when I start, oh man, I got lumps on my head. My mouth swelling up, so I sound like this right now for the next 3 days. I can't even talk because my lips are swelling. You understand? I didn't care. I had zero self-preservation as far as physically in prison. And all I wanted was my peace. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be able to go to the day room and read a book and you mind your business, man. Leave me alone. And if I had to be an asshole, I was. And I was ostracized, except for a few individuals who realized, damn, that youngster right there, He's got access to books. He's got people in the free world that are sending packages of books in and all that. I said, we need to hook up with him. So when guys who were on the same page as me, some guys have been over 20 and 30 years in prison, they realize, damn, this youngster here has got access to all these books. So instead of trying to talk game and run game on me, what did they do? They came at me with the one thing they knew was going to get my attention. They brought me books, and I was able to select what was valuable, what was not. And my education started, but everything I was choosing initially was through a Christian lens. Christianity had boxed me in. I'm reading it all. I'm studying it far more than most men are capable of doing in the free world. It didn't matter what it was. I'm going through Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Jude, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, all the minor prophets, all the major prophets, all the way to the end of the New Testament. I'm going through it back and forth, cross-referencing. I am studying the Word because at that time in my life, it was my sword. And this is how I was going to go through life. And I had this moral outrage for how they put me in prison. I'm not going to get into the details in this. That's other videos. But the whole time I'm in prison, I had this moral outrage, and it came out. And when people got in my way or whatever, I had zero tolerance at all for any BS entering my field. I just didn't have it. It was gone. And I felt like I was David up against Goliath. Anybody I came into contact with in prison, they were automatically Goliath, even if they weren't. It's just how my mind worked when I was young. You were Goliath, I am David. That means I recognize you're bigger, you're stronger, you're probably smarter, you've been here long, you're well established in prison, but I don't care. I'm David, and God is going to let me beat your ass if you get in my way. This was my attitude. My spiritual upbringing by Doris Jean Brashears, puritanical Southern Baptist to the core. My upbringing by her had me believing I was an X-Men in sheep's clothing. Had me believing all my life, before I went to prison too, but even especially when I was in prison, had me believing that I was invincible. And that if I did get my ass whooped, it was simply because there's something wrong going on in my life. I kind of invited that, but that's okay. It's probably not going to happen again for a while. I amend my behavior, and I do, because no matter what, even in prison, I still live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This was my maxim when I was in prison. So I'm in this Christian box, and I come into contact with more information, newer information that was outside the Bible my mother in my church and my pastor had introduced me to. You can imagine my surprise when I'm reading the book of Jubilees. What? We're talking about Noah and the flood and the giants and the fallen angels and the post-flood world, and how they found a writing from the pre-flood giants. And what is going on here? How come I've never heard of this book? And it just mind explosions, because by the time I discovered the book of Jubilees, I already knew the Bible in and out. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I knew all the letters of Paul, the book of Acts, the book of Hebrews, James, the whole Revelation text in and out. I had been studying the Old Testament and the New Testament. And by the time I came across my first extra canonical book, you can imagine my surprise when I'm going through all this and finding other writings. And then I remember, wait a minute, the book of Jasher is mentioned 2 times in the Old Testament, and one of them concerns when the sun retrograded in the sky. And it says, is this not in the book of Jasher? I said, wow, that means this text right here in the Old Testament cites as a source material another book called the book of Jasher. And you can imagine how I felt when I learned that 4 copies of the book of Jasher had actually been excavated, one of them in a tomb in Gonza of Persia. And I get a copy, and I'm reading it. It's just blowing my mind. It's the first time I've ever seen history laid out in chronological format. It's like the book of Jasher. Like, wow. It never gave me, this is the year, this is the year. It was always giving the years between events. This was my introduction to sequentially understanding history. It was only years later that I realized that academia had been at war with this text. And I found out for the same reasons that the Dutch Oerlin manuscript, academia dismissed it too. And academia dismissed Nostradamus and Mother Shipton. Academia had dismissed several of these old books. And I'm like, wow, what's going on here? And then it was years later that I discovered that, wow, all these texts from the old world that are just summarily dismissed by scholars, there's a common denominator between them. It's the Phoenix phenomenon. And I started realizing there's something here. But this was years later. So let me share. I'm going to begin sharing my screen so you guys can see some of the things that I'm talking about. You're going to see many of the things that my father preserved. All this research, you're going to see the books right now. All these books I read, researched, reread. I read some of these books 3 and 4 times. I data mined them, and the whole time, dear old dad's coming to the prison. He's buying me Twix and Sprites, and we're at visitation. And when he leaves, the prison guards give him a big old red chain sack. That's what they call them. It's a red net bag, and it's full of all my latest notes and the few books I wanted to keep sent home. So Dad kept getting them, and he kept every single one, didn't lose a single one, even though my own father had no idea where this was going. He had no idea. He just took the books home faithfully and put them in the attic, where I found them all in 2016. I've told that story before, but I'm going to show you the books from which that research came. Then I'm going to show you the research. But here it is. Let me share my screen. So at this part of my narrative, it's the early 90s. I'm still a Christian. I'm still the same Christian I was before I went to prison. That's who I am. When I'm doing all this research, I'm putting all this together. So let me share my screen. We'll be sharing the screen for the rest of the video, but we're going to share it in a little bit different way. I want to share it like this. Oh, I guess it doesn't let me do that. Maybe it does. Maybe it'll let me share it like this. Yeah, that's even better. Makes the screen bigger. Makes the screen much bigger. All right. So you can still see me in the screen now instead of aside from the screen, which makes it much bigger. All right, so doing a lot of talking, so I need some drink. So I can see that you guys can see what I'm looking at. So I'm going through the extra canonical works. Most of you don't even know that there's a 6th and 7th book of Moses right here. Introduction by Paul Tice, that's my publisher. So I'm going through all the pseudepigraphical material, the apocryphal material, and the extra canonical material for a few years. I just get immersed into that because here I am reading all kinds of new stuff that basically supports the Old Testament and New Testament. This is what I'm going through. Ancient Book of Jasher, right here. Still got a copy on the shelf of this. Amazing book of chronology. It's amazing chronology. But it was only years later that I realized that the Jewish authors, the rabbinical authors, all took these chronological facts from other sources and then built a narrative up, including themselves into historical narratives for which they didn't belong. They took the chrono markers, they took the major events in world history, and then used those chrono markers when they built their own narrative and inserted themselves in it. But these were discoveries from years later. Here's Augustine, City of God, Christian text, Church Father. Here's the mystery of the long lost 8th, 9th, and 10th books of Moses. What? Yeah, so the Book of the Secrets of Enoch. You can imagine my surprise when I'm reading about the Gregorian. You're reading about the fallen angels, the different levels of hell and heavens. And I'm reading about the pre-flood world, the Book of the Secret, and how this giant structure was built at Akuzan. We know that's the Great Pyramid. Apocalypse of Barak. Here's another good one. This was translated from the Syriac. Very popular translator, Archaix Charles, who also translated the Book of Enoch. This Apocalypse of Baruch, or Baruch. The Archaix volume, documents that claim proof of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. These were found in the Vatican archives. These were translated by Dr. McIntosh and Twyman. Very interesting text. But these were all things that I was reading that was confirming my beliefs, Old Testament and New Testament narratives. The Book of Adam and Eve. It's pretty large book. The Book of Adam and Eve. It's a narrative. Adam and Eve's conversations with the serpent. It's crazy. Here's the Ethiopic Enoch. Archaix Charles translator again. This is the Ethiopic Enoch, not to be confused with Slavonic Enoch, which is called the Secrets of Enoch. They're two different texts found in two different parts of the world. Slavonic Enoch was found. The Book of the Secrets of Enoch was found in the archives of the Belgrade Public Library. It was totally accident. They didn't even know they had it. Book of Jubilees, also called the Little Genesis, also translated by Archaix Charles. Forgotten Books of Eden. It's like 26, 27 different books, all pseudepigraphical, rabbinical and Christian constructions. The Key of Solomon the King. McGregor Mathers. The Lost Apocrypha of the Old Testament, their titles and fragments. Yeah, I'm going through all these in prison. I'm looking at all these books, and it's blowing my mind that all this extra information was in there. But I'm also seeing things that were not in the Bible, that were not in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament, and my curiosity was piqued. The perimeters of my understanding are broadening, but the acquisition of new information is only creating new questions. It's creating new questions. So, Lost Books of the Bible, the Apocryphal New Testament. These are the lost books of the New Testament. Here's Seder Olam. This is published in 1693. Sefer Yetzirah. I was unimpressed with this. I don't know why so many people are impressed with this. I am so unimpressed with Sefer Yetzirah. It's a rabbinical deal. I got a whole bunch of commentaries and writings on the Talmud. I didn't have it in prison. I didn't have any copies of the Talmud. I had books that cited a whole bunch of different Talmudic deals that were in reference to Old Testament things. There's almost nothing in the Talmuds, even though the Talmud was written post-Christian times. There's almost nothing in the Talmud about Christianity at all. Arnobius. I've got a bunch of fragments of Arnobius, pretty interesting stuff. Arnobius wrote about resets. Sure did. I have a video about reset. Reset theory is ancient, and Arnobius is one of my quote. Alexander Hislop was a book that was really popular and in Christian circles, and I had studied it too. The Two Babylons. It's all about the career. The whole thing is about the post-flood career of Nimrod and his wife, Queen Semiramis of Babylon. Inventors of religions. So this is my file on the pseudepigraphical text. All these books right here. These are all books I had read and researched, and it just opened my eyes that there was a lot more outside the Old Testament, New Testament, because up until this point, I was just reading the Bible. And the Bible was my whole entire source of inspiration. It was my source of historical information, and the Bible was everything to me, like so many Christians today. All right, so where am I at now? I need to go back. So in reading these texts, in reading all this material from the pseudepigraphical texts, the apocryphal writings, and the extra-canonical texts, it automatically led into the Hermetic writings. There were so many Hermetic references and so many references to things that were reflected in the Gnosis. So I started reading those as well. Anything that was even remotely Christian or Old Testament related. Judeo-Christianity was still my life. So I'm studying all these books, and it's adding to my eschatological materials. It's adding to my doctrinal materials. And I'm a prison scholar when it comes to the Bible. That's who I was. That's how I identified. And I'm talking to other prisoners that had books that we could trade, and this is what I was doing. And it led to these deeper books on the Gnosis, on the early church being students of the Gnosis, on Gnostic traditions, and the crossover with the Hermetic literature. Like I've told you guys many times in many videos, very profound Christian mystical text called the Shepherd of Hermas text. So here's Albigensian heresy. When I read this book, it was like reading a nightmare. It's like, whoa, no, man, Christians are doing this. Yeah, Christians going in there butchering other Christians just because they believe something totally different. And here's the Divine Pymander, such a great book. It's such a great book. And other writings of Hermes Trismegistus. This is Hermes the Thrice Great. It's a book, and some of the things are in here are so deep and profound and spiritual. They're no different than things I read in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So these new ideas that are growing on me, I'm opening my mind and I'm expanding my horizons to include that. Okay, well, if God can inspire the ancient writers to put together the Old Testament, then God can inspire the New Testament. Then God could probably inspire some other people around the world too to put the Hermetic stuff and the Gnostic stuff together. This is where I was going. I'm still 100 at this time. I'm still 100% washed in the blood of the Lamb. I'm Christian to the core. I'm born again. That's who I am when I'm taking all this new data into consideration. The Gnosis, or Ancient Wisdom in the Christian Scriptures. William Kingsland was a very popular old author. So I'm going through these texts on the Gnosis, the Gospel of the Witches. I mean the Gospel of, I have that book too. I'm sorry. I do have a book called the Gospel of the Witches, but this is the Gospel of the Gnostics. What I don't have here's the Gospel of Hermes. Here's the Gospel of the Prophet Mani. Yeah, I couldn't believe when I read his story. It's like, wow, man, they really screwed this dude over. But yeah, he started a huge movement. But these were Christians just like the earliest first century and second century Christians. Then this book, oh my God, this book's only this big. I have it right here on my shelf. I showed it several times. It's only about this big, but it's in micro print. The history of the Christian religion and church during the first 3 centuries, not to be confused with this giant book I have right here. Not to be confused with this big giant book, which is called History of the Christian Religion to the Year 200. This is a totally different book by John Waite that I've also given free copies out to Archaix moderators, some of them, and then also have talked about ad nauseum. This is a different text, the history of the Christian religion and church during the first 3 centuries. And this entire book lays it out. How the early church were all Gnostics, no exceptions. And then how foreign elements were introduced, Judaic, that came in here, basically hijacked it and turned the Gnosis into Judeo-Christianity. And then later demonized the Gnosis, and that's why we had the church purges. And when you read a lot of stuff like Fox's Book of Martyrs and all that, you're led to believe that Fox's Book of Martyrs is an account of the early Christians being killed by the Romans and all that. It's not true. Those early accounts were actually Jews being killed by the Romans in several purges, and then later Christians killing other Christians because they didn't believe the same things. So I didn't know this at the time, though. I learned all this later. History of the Waldenses, again, another church purge, another time when Christians who knew that the Word made flesh is where everything went wrong. Because the original Word was spiritual. It was spiritual information for spiritual beings. And anything of earthly attachment, anything like the historical record is nothing but earth. That's earthly attachment. Every bit of that wasn't a part of the original Jesus story. The original Jesus story wasn't about what he did. It's about what he said. That's what it was about. So this was, but I didn't know that at the time. The Kybalion. This is a rather recent text. It's not ancient, but it's still very good. It's a really good summation of Hermetic philosophy. I read the Pistis Sophia. It's the Gnostic Gospel. This is the exact copy I had, G.R.S. Mead, and it just opened my eyes up like, wow. It was so alien to me because some of these concepts are not in the Old Testament and New Testament. But then again, it was very unusual to me that to find out later on that the Gnostic versions are the older ones and the Judeo-Christian versions are far more recent. And this was a huge eye-opener years later. So those are those books right there. Now, in reading of the church purges, in reading about the gnosis and how even the Hermetic, the people that the Greek Hermetica was scorned by the church, it led straight into another body of literature. I'm slowly growing. I'm still Christian and all that, but I'm able to dismiss a lot of things initially. I didn't dismiss them years later, but I'm reading these things and I see these books like Compendium Maleficarum. And I read this translation, this English translation of Compendium Maleficarum. It's like, wow, the church didn't burn witches because they were evil. The church was literally kidnapping women after their men went to the Crusades and all that, and they lost their property. It was easy to kidnap the women. The men weren't there to defend them and forced them into nunneries. A lot of good-looking women were forced into nunneries. Good-looking boys forced to serve as altar boys in the church. The church, and I'm reading all these accounts of just how wicked, and the church adopted practices to where they couldn't burn a woman at the stake in front of the people unless she confessed. So they wrote this into law, and they kept the moral high ground in front of the people. They were always able to say that they extracted a confession. And this assuaged the people. It is the institution, the ancient Bronze Age institution of human sacrifice all over again. Remember, they used, in the Bronze Age times in Poseidon worship, they used the jellyfish to sting in Poseidon worship, which is of the sea, to sting the victim. And then the people of the village or the town would come and they would see that the victim was alive and breathing, but they were not resisting, knowing that a knife was about to be plunged into their heart. So the people would come lay hands on the girl. And they would all lay hands on the girl or young boy, and they would confess their sins. Because in the ancient Bronze Age, the human sacrifice, the scapegoat, was the one that was going to receive all this, and they were doing it willingly. They were the Jesus of the time. This is old customs. I didn't make this up. This is all read in books. I read all about this in historical books that talk about these things. And in Poseidon worship, they would take the giant squid and put it on her face. And the giant squid would suffocate and kill her. And it would also eat her face. And in the rare circumstances where a hero showed up to save whoever it was the sacrifice, and the squid was removed from the face, she looked horrible. And this is what the origin of the story Medusa. So anyway, I've talked about all this in prior videos, but now I'm coming across a new body of literature, and this body of literature is waking me up. It's like, what? The church is capable of torturing these women using hot burning instruments and needles. They would shove needles through them. They would do all kinds of stuff. And as soon as the woman was broken down, because they will be, every man and every woman will be broken in torture. All you got to do is torture them long enough. So, once the victim had enough and they couldn't take any more torture or whatever, they would confess. All torture stopped. They were fed. They were watered. They had to sign the document, and they were put back in their cells or dungeons or whatever. And then they were let out to the people. They were let out to the people to be burned at the stake. But by that time, they were malnourished. They couldn't defend themselves. Sometimes they were probably sedated when they went to the public so they wouldn't scream out, "I'm innocent, they tortured me," or whatever, or they were gagged or whatever. They just couldn't defend themselves by the time that they were marched out to the stake and in front of the people, burned alive. But a herald would read the charges, and then there would be witnesses right there who would swear under oath that they had extracted a confession, and they would show the people the signature or the sign or the blood mark or whatever of the confessor. So this is how they did it. And I'm reading about all these accounts. And I'm reading how King James advocated this in his book, Demonology. Yeah, man, torturing people, man, so you can get the demon out of them. History of the First Council of Nicaea. I'm reading all about that. It's like, wow, they didn't even agree with what the Bible was. Even that early on, there was already disputes about if Jesus was even a historical figure. Because a whole lot of people were saying no. But what did the church do after it actually formalized a canon after 325 AD? What did they do? They started killing everybody who disagreed. I didn't like that at all as a Christian reading about that. Huss the Heretic is an amazing story of how Christianity. I just recently did a video about this, about how the Bohemians beat the crap out of every European army 7 times, and then the rest of Europe left them alone. The Bohemians were morally outraged that their hero, Huss, who was called a heretic, was cited to Rome, given safe passage, but when he appeared at the Vatican, they put him in a dungeon, tortured and killed him. Started a huge war and everyone in Europe, including the papacy, the entire Christian world, lost, except the Bohemians. They won. They kicked that ass. In the Name of Humanity, another book showing all the torture. Jumping Jehovah, exposing the atrocities of the Old Testament God. This book was written and published by my publisher, Paul Tice. When I read this book, it shocked me. I was like, whoa, it made me go deeper into the Old Testament, and I realized I was programmed to ignore all this. How did I miss this? All the times I've read the Old Testament, how did I miss this? Woke me up, guys. Not just this book, but many books just like it. I'm going through there. I'm like, wow, especially Ingersoll woke me up. And I'm reading, saying, how did I miss that? How is a loving God going to command me to take the babies of my enemy and dash their heads on stones? What? How is a loving God going to order me to go into a foreign city and take their daughters to be my slaves? How is that? To kill every man, woman, child, every man, woman, and child of any cities that are in my territory. But my territory only became mine because you said so. Priorly, it was theirs, so they wouldn't be living there. So, yeah, it's a lot of things started waking me up. Popery, the foe of the church. Then, of course, I read this and dismissed it, because I'm going to tell you now, for the first like 12 years of my imprisonment, you couldn't talk bad about Jews around me. They're the child. It's the Jew first, then the Gentile. The good book, the sword that I carry everywhere, because I equated them with my God. Shoot, my God must. I have to defend these people to the core. I have to defend these people because that's what my God says, and everything I know about my God came from the Old Testament, New Testament. And I'm reading all this stuff, and it's the Jew first, then the Gentile, and that salvation came through the Jews. And I'm reading all this stuff, and I'm not processing that this is 100% brain. This is some real mind. I don't even want to say it in this video, but at the time, I am programmed to believe the script. I'm programmed to believe all this psyop. And then I read something like this, and it kind of gets me going. And then the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, what makes it so incredible is the blowback. It's like, well, if something's not true, then most times when somebody, I gotta give you an example. When Billy Carson promotes some new thing, man, most people ignore it. It's like, well, who cares? But when this came out, there was a media war against this book, claiming it was all bullshit. Why? Why so much energy on a negative? If it's not true, you just ignore it, right? Social Record of Christianity, another book that will just blow your mind on all the corruption. So here's another body of literature that I'm in prison coming. It's waking me up. It's waking me up, but I'm still hardcore, twice baptized, washed in the blood of the Lamb, Bible-thumping Christian. None of this new information changed me, but I'm aware of it now. But just like uniformitarians, I'm able to shelve and compartmentalize all the anomalies that don't fit with the programming that I've received. I'm able to shelve it all away. It's there in my memory. I've got it. I know I've come into contact with that data, but I don't care anymore. I don't care because in the long run, it's none of this new information is going to shake my faith. It's not going to shake my faith. I believe 100%. At this time in my life, I believe 100% in the Lord Jesus is my personal Lord and Savior. And when I die, I'm going to heaven. That's how I sounded back then. And man, woe unto anybody that got in my face talking bad about Christianity. I am now the very individual I was then, but I was supporting Christianity back then. And I believed 100% in everything in that book. I just took all this new information and I shelved it. That's what I did. But this led to another body of literature. This one fascinated me. But again, I'm practicing exclusions. I'm doing the same thing scientists do today. I come across this book in prison, The Origin of Biblical Traditions, Hebrew Legends in Babylon and Israel. Now I'm able to put all that stuff I learned about early Christianity and how demonic it was and how evil and what they had to do in order to just pass off the story of Jesus as history when it was initially a literary masterpiece, maybe a Greek stage play. Well, I'm able to shelve all that when I come across this information. Because now I'm reading about the flood. I'm reading about the giants. The Old Testament talks about the flood and giants, right? Okay, now I'm reading it from Old Cuneiform. I'm reading it from Akkadian, Sumerian, or copies of Sumerian stories in Akkadian and later Babylonian and Syrian cuneiform. I'm reading about all kinds of things that are in the Old Testament. So I automatically assume, oh, okay, well, look, this is strengthening my belief in the Bible now. Like, wow. But it's also planting seeds. It's planting seeds because I'm now coming into contact with information about other things the Bible never mentioned. Why aren't the Chinese in the Bible anywhere? The Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Japanese, the Orientals, why aren't they anywhere in the Bible? So little things like that start creeping up as the more and more I read these type of books. I'm reading, this is just a stack of my books on early Christianity in the Old Testament. Got a lot, guys. These were all, I read every one of these in prison. Two Babylons, Father of the Church, Origins of the New Testament, Birth of Christian Religion, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors, Jesus, God, Man, or Myth, History of the First Council of Nicaea, The History of the Christian Religion. We just talked about some of these. The Bible's Most Embarrassing Moments, Mushrooms and Mankind, Origin of Biblical Traditions, Babylonian Influence on the Bible. I did a whole video on that one, Smith Palmer. I also did a video on this one, Julian Morgenstern, The Doctrine of Sin in the Babylonian Religion. Ancient Pagan and Modern Christian Symbolism, A Short History of the Bible. I think a lot of these are in this section here. There's Gerald Massey, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World. A Short History of the Bible, Bronson Keeler. Really good book, but it opened me up to a lot of other histories like Assyria, Babylonia, Egypt. Now I'm interested because I've read the Bible so many times and the extra canonical materials, the pseudepigraphical, the Apocrypha. Now I'm interested in, okay, well, shoot, if I got this history down pat in the Bible, but how come I haven't read any Egyptian histories, Babylonian histories, Hittite histories, Canaanite histories, Phoenician histories, Greek histories, Roman histories, Etruscan histories? Now I'm thirsting for more information now that I've satisfied all this, and I now have more questions than answers. And I'm trying to put the Jesus gospel story in and try to see how it fits with everything else. And my mind is expanding. I'm reading all this amazing stuff, ancient pagan and modern Christian symbolism. Inman woke me up a lot too on the similarities. I'm like, wow, Christianity is supposed to be separate and all that. How come Christians are doing these things? These are the same things the pagans were doing. So now I'm compartmentalizing. I go into a phase where I decide if everything in that I come into contact with is either pagan or Christian. Oh, it's another psyop. I fell for another psyop. I'm so polarized at this time in my life. And through it all, I'm taking notes. I'm going to show those to you in this video. Through it all, I'm taking handwritten notes on everything. I'm writing the title. If I see something that's profound, I write what it is. I write the author, the date of publication, and the publisher of that book and the page number I found it. I am meticulously recording. By this time, I've got thousands of handwritten pages, literally thousands of handwritten pages in all my research. Babylonian influence on the Bible and popular beliefs. The Bible's most embarrassing moments. This is really good too, because it goes through the Old Testament and New Testament. It shows you absolute contradictions and things that contradict the message of the Bible itself. And I'm able to dismiss some of this, though. The Christ myth, a study. Yeah, I'm going through here, and I'm like, man, there's no way. But they're making points I cannot refute. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video. All it takes is an 8th grade education to be a podcaster who's trying to debunk other people, because all you're doing is throwing out opinions and cherry picking what you want to attack. But if you're going to attack the thesis, you need to attack it all. You need to dismantle it from its beginning and all the way in. So by the time you're done, this is what I do. This is what I do to other people's theories. You have to dismantle it from multiple different vantage points till there's nothing left to stand on. No one attacking Archaix is doing anything even remotely close. It doesn't take anything to say you're debunking something. It doesn't take anything to disagree, and it doesn't take any intelligence whatsoever to say, I don't believe that. That's all. It doesn't. And when I read books like this one right here, The Christ Myth, I was that debunker. I was the one who dismissed it and said, nah, man. Elizabeth Evans, she don't know what she's talking about. Yeah, that book's missing. That book is missing. This is the best one. That is missing context. So I was able to dismiss it because of my religious Christian fundamental Southern Baptist programming. I'm able to dismiss it, but I still shelve the information in my mind, well, in the field, that, man, there's some real good counterpoints here as to why Jesus was not even a historical figure. And I read more Christian and mythology. So Spivey wakes me up to even more details and not mentioned to other people. He's not the only one. We've already shown Doctrine of Sin. Then the 18 absent years of Jesus Christ. In this one and like 4 other books I read about, all of them are about the 18 years absent, from Jesus being 12 years old in the temple to the gospel begins at 30 years old. So you have to understand the oldest gospel, the Gospel of Marcion, doesn't have anything about Jesus being a child. It's just a story of a 30-year-old who goes through and does all these amazing teachings and all these things. And the Gospel of Marcion doesn't have the virgin birth and doesn't have all kinds of weird things that have been added, the mythological stuff added to the New Testament. The Gospel of Marcion is a spiritual text. It's very plain. Then came Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But the 18 years of Christ, these all were written years and years after the Gospels, trying to fill in the gaps. But what blew my mind is a lot of the material was coming from the East. Remember, Christianity was born at Antioch in Syria. This is what the Bible says. Antioch in Syria. Antioch in Syria, according to the historians, was a hotbed of Buddhism. Buddhist culture was everywhere. And from the East in India is where we find these legends of 18, where Jesus was for 18 years. Emanuel Swedenborg, this man too. Emanuel Swedenborg influenced me to start realizing, okay, maybe the Christian mystics are onto something, and that the Bible is a spiritual document and some of its historicity is inaccurate. Swedenborg was a Christian mystic, and everything was to be spiritually translated. None of the historical record meant shit. But I just wasn't there yet. But the seed was planted. Freedom from Religion, Jack Barringer, deep. All Jack Barringer and Neil Freer books are deep. So Freedom from Religion, Jack Barringer's going through it and just showing, man, every bit of this is an error. It's a psyop. It's a psychological warfare against the human soul. To turn into history that which was nothing but a spiritual teaching is toxic. So History of the Cross, the pagan origin, idolatrous adoption, and worship of the image. This too showed me how nefarious the church was. This book here, Dr. Paul Karras, this is a fascinating book. The History of the Devil And I don't know why this book cover doesn't continue, but the actual title is The History of the Devil and the Idea of Evil, Dr. Paul Karras. So I read that in prison too. It just opened my eyes and saying, wow, look at all these traditions about the devil. Look at all these other Christian traditions I wasn't even aware of. And I get exposed to all kinds of belief systems that I never even heard of, especially the Zoroastrianism and the texts of the Zendavesta, which we'll get to. Jesus, God, Man, or Myth. Here's another one. Another book that irritated the shit out of me. The Life of Jesus, Ernest Renan. All these books provided more and more information and details that we're not seeing. The Bible isn't a standalone at all. And it may not even be true. Our sun god, Christianity before Christ. Yeah, this is particularly damning as well. Pagan and Christian creeds, showing them to be one and the same. The Paganism and Our Christianity, author Weigel. I read all these books in prison. They're all in my bibliography that I published on YouTube and in my published books. Here's Rico's Irreverent Bible Studies. Rito T. Samasis. It's actually Jack Barringer, and that's one of his aliases, his pseudonyms. But yeah, this is Rico's Irreverent Bible Studies. He literally took 15 different concepts that are promoted in the Bible that are totally against Judeo-Christianity, but they're there. How is that possible? It's because many of the writings were borrowed from other cultures. The Shroud of Christ. This is about the Turin Shroud. For those of you who don't know, maybe one of my moderators can put the link in the description box. It does apply to this video, but I did a critical analysis of the Turin Shroud, showing from multiple different vantage points why the Turin Shroud could never be the shroud of Jesus. Still waiting on that one too. I asked the public to debunk that. All right. Yeah, Simon Magus. So you learn about Simon Magus in the New Testament, and the picture of the New Testament paints is that this is an evil dude. He's a wizard. He's a magician. Not true in the historical record. The New Testament is caught lying. When you read about what all other ancient authors said about Simon Magus, it'll surprise you. Might have been the most spiritual person in the New Testament, apart from the spiritual teachings of Jesus. Some Mistakes of Moses. Ingersoll is a fantastic. Robert Ingersoll. Get you some Ingersoll books. It's very critical. Some Mistakes of Moses. A Vision of God. This is Nicholas de Cusa. Was Jesus influenced by Buddhism? No. Jesus is just a story. But the writers were influenced by Buddhism, yes. A comparative study of the lives and thoughts of Gautama and Jesus. So here's a whole nother body of information that I come into contact with. It's really got me looking at all kinds of other civilizations and other religions now. And this is where I'm at. But I'm still hardcore Christian to the core. Still. All right. So because I'm now curious, I'm really curious that maybe what I've been told does have some errors. I'm shelving the error as human. I'm like, okay, but it doesn't mean that the Bible's not spiritual. I mean, we're told in the Bible that God and the Holy Spirit inspires men to produce spiritual writings and all that. So, okay, cool. The Bible can have mistakes, but it's just going to be from translations from thousands of years. It's all acceptable. I'm still trying to assuage my own, I guess, my mind. I'm still fighting, despite coming into contact with so much data. Then I read this book, The History of the Christian Religion to the Year 200, Charles Waite. I've done videos on it. I've given free copies out of it. It's an extremely rare book. As a matter of fact, my publisher just last month when I was in San Diego, I talked to Paul Tice. He showed me a copy and he said, man, do you want to scoop this up? You bought all the other ones, but we're going through the warehouse now and we're unboxing a bunch of stuff and we found one more copy. So I'm just letting you know, there's one copy of this at the book tree, right? Well, there was a month ago. It's a very rare book. I have one on my shelf. I've given 3 copies away. This book breaks down everything about how they put Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John together, showing that they were all fiction accounts. None of it's true. And it was very meticulous how they did this. You'll learn all about Marcion, the Turkish navigator who had the original sayings of Jesus, and the writings of Paul, and why they're so fundamentally different, and how it was put together, and how Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John came into the possession of the church. It's all right here. It's an amazing book. I read Eusebius, and Eusebius I developed a love for, man, I wanted to read everything from Marcus Varro. I wanted to go back and I wanted to read Zeno. I wanted to go back and I wanted to read Pythagoras. I wanted to read everything from Plato. After reading Eusebius, I was on fire. I want to go read all the Greek stuff now because he cites it so much. I want to go read all these things from the Greeks. I want to read about Aristotle and what he has to say, and Anaximander, and those who have been listening to my channel for a long time. You already know I read all the Greeks, all the Greek masters that I could come across. I've read them. Found so many amazing things that most people have never even heard of, such as the positions of Eudoxus of Cnidos, and all these amazing things from Diodorus Siculus and Strabo, and especially Herodotus of Halicarnassus. Reading Eusebius, it was only years later that I realized Eusebius is a liar. He didn't lie about historical citations. He wrote about the Ogygian deluge, the second flood, the great flood that destroyed the world after the flood of Noah. He wrote about a bunch of amazing things. In his historical stuff, he never had any reason to be deceitful. But he needed to add in all the historical stuff in order to pass off the deception that the church hired him to do, because he was the official Roman church historian, and they needed to show their authority over the rest of the Christian world. They used Eusebius to do it. But that's another story. I learned that years later. The Historical Jesus and the Mythical Christ, another one. Gerald Massey is one of my favorites. I have his gigantic collection of books right here on my shelves. I've showed them: Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, and Natural Genesis. Both of them are 2 volumes. Both of them are massive. I also have Gerald Massey's lectures, and I also have Gerald Massey's poem book, a little tiny book of poems, and I showed it last month, and I can't find it now. Ah, there it is. Gerald Massey's poems. Gerald Massey is another great. That's from the 1800s. Gerald Massey, he broke it down, Old Testament and New Testament. It shows how they're all just copies of ancient Egyptian religion. The origins of the New Testament. Here's a critical analysis. The Christ Conspiracy. Archaix S. Her name is actually Murdoch. The Christ Conspiracy, the greatest story ever sold. She also breaks down Christianity like you wouldn't believe, and shows you that every element of Christianity comes from more ancient religions. The World's 16 Crucified Saviors, Kersey Graves, is another classic. He too breaks it down, shows it all. You have to imagine what I'm going through when I'm reading these. As I'm reading these, I'm now understanding that, oh, okay, so I'm still a Christian, washed in the blood of the Lamb. I'm still 100% on board with Jesus died for my sin. I'm accepting the institution of human sacrifice. He resurrected from the dead 3 days later, which gave me the power to be immortal. I'm born in sin. I'm still accepting that doctrine. I am born in sin, and I was already guilty before I'm born, and Jesus saves me because Jesus loves me. I'm still buying into that narrative at this time, even though I'm coming into contact with all this data now that's showing me the entire thing was a fiction made up from the start. And it's very prestigious scholarship that's showing me this. In the course of reading all these Christian books and all that, I come into contact with something very profound, because I've always been fascinated with the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And it was equally unusual to me that the Great Pyramid's unknown to the Egyptians. They didn't have any writings about it. So I read Bonnie Gaunt's material. She's a Christian. I'm reading her stuff, and she has all these references and measurements and dates in her books, and all this gematria. And I don't want to understand all this stuff, but it shows that, man, the Great Pyramid is important to the Bible. Look at all these things in the Bible that she associates to the Great Pyramid. And it got me thinking, wow, man. So my here it is again. this tug, this prod and pull, this tug and push. I come into contact with genres of material that attack my faith. And then I come into contact with genres of material that support my faith, but provide me new information I never heard of, like the connection between the Old Testament and the Great Pyramid of Egypt. We've just been looking at things the wrong way. Then I read E. Raymond Capt, and it blew me away. The Great Pyramid Decoded, and how it all talks about Old Testament, New Testament type things, about humans and time periods. And now the Great Pyramid's connected to the calendar timeline. I'm like, what is this? It's amazing. So Noah Hutchings, a man I personally corresponded with. I used to write Noah Hutchings all the time, and his editor, Larry Spargimino. They're very familiar with my research. For years, I corresponded with Noah and his editor. Noah Hutchings is the president and founder of Southwest Radio Ministries and Southwest Radio Church out of Oklahoma. It's huge. It's nationwide. But he wrote a book called The Great Pyramid, Prophecy in Stone. And when I read it, it's just blowing my mind. It's increasing my faith again. And it's just, I had a hunger now to research the Great Pyramid. I wanted to know for myself. And that's exactly what I did. I went straight into all kinds of books that were available to me. By this time, it's about 1998. I'm still a hardcore Christian, 8th year in prison. I come across Christopher Dunn's research, Giza, the Giza power plant, technologies of ancient Egypt, and I realized, whoa, this thing is technologically advanced. This thing is far more sophisticated than any ancient civilizations could have built, according to my understanding at the time. I read David Davidson's and H. Alder Smith's The Great Pyramid, Its Divine Message. You guys know the story. I've already talked about it too many times. Origin and significance of the Great Pyramid. It shocked me, all the ancient Arabian, Nabatean, pre-Islamic stories about the Great Pyramid builders, about Surid. And I read about Surid. I already knew Enoch. I know everything about Enoch's life. I know what he did in different years. I know that there was a 300-year period when Enoch was the emperor before he disappeared at a place called Akuzan, and before 800,000 witnesses. And then I'm reading the same story about how Enoch ruled over 130 kings and princes, and yet in the Arabian traditions, it was 130 of the nomes of Egypt. In the Christian Coptic text, it says 130 of the nomes of Egypt. Surid ruled, and everything Surid did was the same thing Enoch did. And it just blew my mind that here's Surid building the Great Pyramids. Why? Because the cataclysm's coming. They wanted to preserve information for the future. So I'm seeing all this comparative analysis. And I'm seeing it, and it's opening my eyes that the world is a much bigger place than the Bible. Message of the Sphinx, Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval. Of course, I read all the Graham Hancock books, Fingerprints of the Gods. I read Bauval and Andrew Collins, and I read Rand Flimath. I've read so many of these popular, and I bought their information initially because I didn't have frames of reference. I didn't have the understanding I have now from the plethora of material that I have immersed myself in. I didn't understand that all these men were promoting some bullshit. I didn't know. I fell for it. I went deep off into all this material, the Graham Hancock material. I'm impressed by it. It's very impressive on the surface until you start dissecting it. Then it just all falls apart. But that happened years later. Our Inheritance of the Great Pyramid. Charles Piazzi Smith, 1874. I told you the story of how that guy had that I got that book because a guy had it under his hot pot. He just had it holding up his hot pot, and I saw it, and I was looking for that book. John Taylor, The Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid, Adam Rutherford. I went through Rutherford's material in prison. So my mind has expanded now, and now I understand that, wow, this is crazy. The Great Pyramid is like a prophecy in stone, but it's recording the past and the future. And the rectilinear measurements inside the Great Pyramid align with historical events. How's this possible? So I went deep. You guys know I went deep. We got whole books published about it now. But and at least 50 videos on the calendrics of the Great Pyramid. Well, yeah, at this time, when I'm making these discoveries, I'm still a Christian. I'm still washed in the blood of the Lamb. It's about 1998. It's still 1998, 1999 when I am now interested in all things ancient. I'm still Christian. I'm still believing 100% in the Bible. Although I see that there could be some discrepancies here and there, but I can compartmentalize those. I can shelve those because my faith allows me to practice exclusions. And man, I start going through it. I am an information sponge, and I am going in prison on maximum security. I am going through these texts without interruption, no distractions. Thousands of pages of notes are all being sent home as my dad comes and picks up the bags. I'm going through them. You guys know I've quoted White Goddess many times. Here's the Eleusinian mysteries, ancient Greece, ancient symbol worship, Aryan sun myth, sun myth, the origin of religions. I have a lot to show you guys, so I'm going kind of fast. The Bhagavad Gita, Buddhist suttas. All these I read in prison. The Cult of the Mother Goddess, Dhammapada. So I'm just cherry picking those. I'm reading all this stuff. I'm cherry picking. I'm taking out what I feel is the best stuff. Early Buddhism, Egyptian religion. This is Wallace Budge. It's famous. I have a few Budge books. The Evolution of the Idea of God, Grant Allen, is a really eye-opening book as well. The Fountainhead of Religion, Ganga Prasad. I've cited him multiple times. India, What Can It Teach Us? Max Muller. Many of you know Max Muller's name. Life and Religion, Max Muller. Fragments of a Forgotten Faith. What a good book about the Gnostics. This is G.R.S. Mead. Muhammad and Mohammedism. The Mysteries of Mithra. Man, I thought I was reading a Christian book. Man. Nature Worship. Most of these books were printed in the 1800s. This is Ted St. Rain. The Origin and Evolution of Religion, Albert Churchward. I believe that's early 1900s. The origin of religion and its impact on the human soul. This would be Jack Barringer that I told you about earlier. Sex Worship, an exposition of the origin of religion. Sun Lore of All Ages. Tao Te Ching, That Old Time Religion. This is my very first book tree book I've ever ordered. My publisher, I was ordering books from my publisher for at least 5 years before I hit him with a publishing contract, hit him up with a publishing contract, a submission, a manuscript. But the very first book in his catalog I ordered was That Old Time Religion, The Story of Religious Foundations by none other Jordan Maxwell, Paul Tice, and Alan Snow, with a chapter by Gerald Massey. I have that book on my shelf back here, That Old Time Religion. The Vedas, Zoroastrianism. So you can see, I'm still a Christian. I'm still going through. I'm still 100% washed in the blood of the Lamb. Jesus died for my sins. If you're a Muslim, you're going to burn in hell. I mean, this is where I was at. I'm still there, even though I'm acquiring all this information. I have thousands of pages of data, and some of it's chronological. I got all this material. It's just building and building and building. But I'm learning more. Something's happening to me. It hadn't happened yet. It's about 1999. It was around 1999, 2000, right around the Y2K area that I came into contact with David Icke. Two authors at the same time, because it was one inmate. It was one guy who gave me a David Icke book called Children of the Matrix. It was about 1999. He also gave me another book called The New World Order. And as soon as I read it, I had to read another book he had called The Unseen Hand. When I was done with The Unseen Hand, he gave me another book called Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. And those four books woke me up, shattered my paradigm. I'm still a Christian. I'm still washed in the blood of the Lamb. But now I'm doubting that the Bible has the whole story. I'm doubting it. And these books had me delving into a whole nother genre. I am now I am now ordering books from the book tree, and I find David Hatcher Childress. I've never read anything like this. All those books, that whole stack of books up there is David Hatcher Childress. I have all the man's books. To me, he's sold out to the ancient aliens narrative. I don't believe he believes it for a second, but he took the money. That's fine. That's fine. But I used to praise him a lot on my channel because his material, it's awesome. But you can read David Hatcher Childress. He doesn't really opine a lot. He just gives you the facts. Here's what all these old books say. Here's what all these places. And he's traveled to different places in the world to verify these ruins are actually there. And it's good. He's amazing. David Hatcher Childress's Lost Cities books will keep you busy for a year of reading. It's that they're comprehensive. I love these books. Lost Cities of China, Central Asia, and India. Lost Cities of Ancient Mysteries of Africa and Arabia. Lost Cities of Ancient Lemuria and the Pacific. Lost Cities and Ancient Mysteries of South America. That's my favorite one. Lost Cities of North and Central America. These are all David Hatcher Childress. Then I went into Frank Joseph, another author. Frank Joseph is, okay, there's a difference between Frank Joseph and David Hatcher Childress. David Hatcher Childress is like a journalist author who just documents these things. Frank Joseph is a true historian. Huge difference. He doesn't just document all these things, tells you why, here's the source materials. Everything adds up with Frank Joseph. It's good. So, The Lost Civilization of Lemuria, the rise and fall of the world's oldest culture. Now, that doesn't mean I agree with some of his conclusions, because he too has fallen for a lot of uniformitarian and Golden Dawn crap. But other than that, he's got some fantastic material. The Lost History of Ancient America, Frank Joseph, or it's edited by Frank Joseph. Unearthing Ancient America, Frank Joseph. And then Lost in Ancient Technology of Peru and Bolivia, that's Brian Forster. He too is another good documenter. He's really good at documenting these technolithic artifacts throughout the ancient world. Here's The Phoenix Solution by Alan Alford. Secrets of a Lost Civilization. We'll be getting back to Alan Alford before the end of the video. Dead Men's Secrets, Jonathan Gray. I have his entire collection down here. I just showed it last month. But he woke me up to all the parts, out of place artifacts, technological artifacts in the ancient world. I am now absorbing information at ludicrous speed, and I'm documenting all this, and I'm still holding on to the Christian paradigm, but I'm quickly waking up that the world in the ancient world is far bigger than the Bible ever even pretended to be. Symbols, Sex and the Stars, all this amazing calendrical data I got from this book. Mysteries of Ancient South America by Harold T. Wilkins. A lot of Phoenix data in there. Secret Cities of Old South America, more Phoenix data. Giants, Dwarfs, and Other Oddities. This is really good because giants were in the Bible. Moons, Myths, and Man. All kinds of pre-flood histories. The Orion Prophecy. Will the world be destroyed in 2012? Yeah, guys, I never fell for the 2012 PSYOP. And that's just not me bragging ex post facto. You guys know it, because I published books that are still available about 2012 being bullshit. And the Mayan long count does not end in 2012, and nothing bad's going to happen in 2012. The Mysterious Numbers of the Hebrew Kings. Again, chronological material that's just profound. So if you want a beginner's guide to the mysteries of the ancient world, Elder Gods in Antiquity is a good place to start. The book is massive. Don Shorn did a good job. Lost Survivors of the Deluge, Mystery of the Ancients. I read so many of these little books when I was in prison. Frederick Haverman, Tracing Our Ancestors, another fantastic book. Calendar of Tiahuanaco, H.S. Bellamy. Ancient Egyptian Masonry, The Building Craft. I read this book. It's a Booktree book. You can get this from Booktree. The Genesis Race. I read this in prison. Will Hart. I read all these in prison. Our Extraterrestrial DNA and the True Origins of Species. So I'm now I'm going through a phase where I'm trying to bridge ancient aliens with the Bible. I'm going through this phase now, and I'm seriously entertaining it. I'm writing whole data sets, trying to figure out, what doesn't work and what does, because I have all the time in the world in prison. Because now, to me, they're not really aliens at all. These are demons. That's how my programming was. But I'm going through the material, Gog and Magog, about giants in the UK, history of Baalbek. Yeah, to me, giants built back then. To me, giants built all this because it's too big. Let's see, H.S. Bellamy again, Discovering Ancient Giants. I read that too, William Henson. I read this one, Old Civilizations of Inca Land. The Secrets of Lost Races. I've read that several times. Norberg is so good. We Are Not the First. Here's another one of the small books that I read in the hundreds. In Stolen Legacy, How the Wisdom of Ancient Egypt Was Transformed into Greek Philosophy. The premise of his book is that everything ancient Greek was stolen from Egypt. Now, these books definitely had a lot to do with waking me up. Had a lot to do with waking me up because they showed me that the world was far bigger than the Bible. But there's a prod and pull. There's a tug and a push. I'm going back and forth between polarities because I'm still believing in Jesus. I'm still washed in the blood of the Lamb, but I'm now seeing that the world is far bigger than the Bible. And when I read Herodotus, it seals the deal for me. The Bible's not even the Old Testament's not even as big as Herodotus's book. And Herodotus, I love the man. He says, I am not bound to believe. I can't remember what he said. Basically, he says, I record what people say, but I am by no means bound to believe it. And that's what he did. He just went through the history of the world, recording all kinds of things, and even visited many of those places. And the book was written 24 centuries ago. We still got it today. I have it on my shelf. Just like the White Goddess, I have it on my shelf. So much data in this book that opened my eyes up to why the ancient Israelites were so adamant to worship the goddess. So why? And why this new religion that was being opposed upon them by the Levitical priesthood, the sons of Leviathan, was trying to stop them from doing that and impose patriarchal law through Moses, through a demon in a burning bush. It's all here. Ancient Egyptian myths and legends, Lewis Spence. I've read all the Lewis Spence books. They're fantastic. I got a bunch of them. Here's Tracy Twyman, bless her soul. She's passed on. The Moravian mythos. The Gilgamesh epic. I've read Maureen Gallery Kovacs's Epic of Gilgamesh and Samuel Noah Kramer because I like to read multiple translations of different ancient texts, and it's fantastic. I also read Alexander Heidel's material, and it was Alexander Heidel's material that also showed me that the shar was a unit of measurement, not a year, because Alexander Heidel translated cargo manifests in Sumerian that were measured in shars. So if shar meant a year, like Billy Carson's telling you, then years are how they measured crates in cargo holds on shipping manifests. Yeah. Those crates are 3 years. These crates are 10 years. Those crates right there. Yeah, those crates are 432,000 years right there. Those crates. Make sure they get where they're going. Again, H.S. Bellamy, Moon's Man. Atrahasis. See, here's another one. This is the poison of putting the Old Testament with the New Testament. The poison is this. The spiritual material of Jesus cannot be denied. You feel it. You feel the tug in your heart. Things he said, common sense, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The parable of the prodigal son. This is why Christians resist so much new information today, is because they associate the spiritual feeling they have with the real spiritual word. The word is spiritual. The word made flesh is not. It becomes human sacrifice. The red letter editions of the red letter parts of the Bible are what make people respond. It's like the spiritual affinity for these teachings. It's profound. And when you just read the red letter parts, you're not reading anything that's Judeo-Christian. You're not. The Judeo-Christian stuff is inserted in all the black ink parts where they built a historical narrative and descriptors all throughout the text. So The poison is when you attach the Old Testament to the New Testament. Once you've done that, now it becomes blasphemy to disbelieve many of the things that are in the Old Testament because they're a part of the Word of God. But they weren't. They weren't. The Old Testament didn't even exist before the New Testament. Yeah, process that psyop. So here's Atrahasis. And before those new to my channel come over here with that BS narrative, apocryphal Jewish construct about 72 scholars at Alexandrian Library translated and created the Greek Septuagint based off of Hebrew. It's not true. The Greek one, Samaritan one were first. The Syriac versions were first. The Hebrew version of the Bible came much later. Atrahasis, an ancient Hebrew deluge story and other flood story fragments. But Atrahasis is not Hebrew. Atrahasis is Babylonian, and Atrahasis is the Noah story. The myths of Mexico and Peru. Yeah, you can learn all about Cox and how he survived the flood. You can learn about Boquica, how he repopulated the world. Dragon in the Sky, prophecy from the stars. I don't know why I threw that UFO in there. Yeah, I read that book too. The Dragon Legacy. This is Nicholas de Vere. I've read a couple of his books. The Secret History of an Ancient Bloodline. Dragons and Dragon Lore. This is Ingersoll, but you have to understand these book covers are real comical, but the information in these books from the 1800s is fantastic. Robert Graves, The Greek Myths. You already know. When I read this, it was just it's the Bible for Greek mythology. Here's the Gospel of the Red Man, an Indian Bible. Indians in the Americas, the Untold Story. Legends of the Gods, the Egyptian texts. Wallace Budge again. The Leyden Papyrus. I love this book. I've talked about it on YouTube. An Encyclopedia of Fairies. Hobgoblins, brownies, bogies, and other supernatural creatures. Catherine Briggs. This book is packed with information on all kinds of belief systems, from trolls to Tuatha Danann. It's all in here. The Iliad and the Odyssey of Homer. You guys know I've read them. I realize they're post-reset constructions. After the end of the great 300-year Mediterranean Dark Age, those books were the first epics that were written. Here's Oldest Stories of the World by Gaster. The Popol Vuh, which explains that the gods made several species of humans and made them in stages and put them in different places. The Natural Genesis. This is Gerald Massey explaining the Old Testament and the New Testament and how they are constructions. They are not literal history. So, oh man, I just got a hunger pain. So, reading in Enoch about the Watchers and the gods, and reading about all these concepts, and now associating aliens and trying to put all this together. I'm still a Christian, guys, but I'm cherry picking, and I'm practicing exclusions, and I'm throwing out the information that it's pagan, it's evil, it's of the devil trying to get me to lose my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. This is where I'm at. I'm saturating myself. I'm immersed in material from all over the world, different time periods, translated into English, and I'm going through it. I'm seeing the pictures, and my world is expanding, but my faith is not. Something's happening to me while I'm going through this. Around 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2005, 2006. I'm reading newer books. I'm reading books that are just really mind expanding on other interpretations of what Adam and Eve and the serpent really were and what was really going on. I'm reading books with massive chronological data that I've never come into contact with. I'm reading books by Neil Freer that break down the whole Anunnaki narrative in psychological terms that are harrowing. And I realize, wow, this is all psyop. And it's not a psyop in modern times. The Anunnaki texts were a psyop against people in ancient times, and they fell for it. It's the version of ancient aliens 4,000 years ago. I'm reading the Enema Elish, and I see the book of Genesis all over again, and I realize, damn, Genesis, the first 2 chapters of Genesis isn't the word of God. It's the word of Babylon. It's right here, all in Enema Elish, volume 1 and volume 2. Again, there's a Albert T. Clay and Jasher. Jasher's famous. I got a few books by Jasher. He's from the higher criticism era. But that's the Epic of Gilgamesh, another translation. Here's Neil Freer again, God Games. What Will You Do Forever? He wrote Breaking the God Spell, some really good books. This man's back in prison. This is Malachi York, The Holy Tablets. This is the book put out by him. Listen, Malachi York has done a phenomenal amount of research. The fact that he's in prison doesn't bother me at all. I've read his book. And yes, he's one of those black Afrocentrics who thinks everything is from Africa and everybody in the Bible's from Africa, and he believes all that. But he has some fantastic Sumerian Akkadian, old cuneiform translations. They're amazing. And the reason I say they're as amazing is because when you're flipping through his material, you can read whole passages of the Enem Elish, the Karsag tablets, the Era Epos. You can go through all this material. Like, wow, man, this dude really did do a lot of research. He sees the scholarly translations. He's got them all in here. And he really kind of avoided a lot of the Zechariah Sitchin mistakes. So I was very impressed with Malachi York when I'm going through his stuff, and I could not believe that there are references in Malachi York's material to the Phoenix phenomenon. It just blew my mind. I'm going through and saying, what? In the very beginning, in the time of Adam and Eve, there's a red dust that covers the sun and the moon turns blood red. He's describing the Phoenix phenomenon. He's going through, and he claims he got this information from old studies in cuneiform and Akkadian. I can't find his source materials, but the man knows nothing about the Phoenix phenomenon and yet wrote this. Blows my mind. Legacy of Zechariah Sitchin. Mysteries Explored. This is a really good book by Jack Barringer and Paul Tice, my publisher. It's a really good book here. Past Shock, Jack Barringer. He wrote another book called Future Shock. Yeah, this is cargo cult. This is what he's describing the Anunnaki story as cargo cult phenomenon. Sapiens Rising, a manifesto for the children of the 21st century, Neil Freer. I am blown away by Neil Freer's erudition. If I'm blown away by it, you guys know you need to read these books. I'm showing all the Neil Freer books here. I haven't shown Breaking the God Spell yet, but it's a must read because you'll understand the entire Anunnaki deal with psyop. They were long bearded humans. That's all they were. They weren't gods from outer space and all this stuff. So I read this book. And I had to cite it because a lot of people who do criticize Zechariah Sitchin, they claim he made up Nibiru. He did not. This book was published before Zechariah Sitchin was born. This book is a summary of arguments between translators and scholars in the 1800s. It was published in 1900, and it is a series of reports where academia is basically debating amongst themselves on the identity of what the hell Nibiru is, because they keep seeing it in these ancient texts. So kudos to Mr. Sitchin. I'm a Sitchin critic myself, but that's only for his interpretations. He did not make up Nibiru. Nibiru was known for crossing. Nibiru was known as a celestial body, and it's all in this book. All right, so of course, those studies are going to take me straight into Ancient Aliens. Oh yeah, I've done a deep dive into Ancient Aliens, guys. I've gone into the core founding materials. I've read so many Eric von Däniken books. Yeah, I've read all the Zechariah Sitchin books. Here's The Secret History of Extraterrestrials, Lynn Kasten. Of Heaven and Earth, Zechariah Sitchin. Here's one that most people don't even know. Who follows Zechariah Sitchin, they don't even know about this. And this is because my publisher, Paul Tice, was the personal videographer for Zechariah Sitchin. They traveled around the world together. I will show you at the end of this video pictures of them together on different locations. So Paul, when he became a publisher, quit traveling. He published a Zechariah Sitchin book that most Sitchinites don't know of. It's right here, Of Heaven and Earth, where Zechariah Sitchin selected passages from books he liked, authors he liked, and then he wrote himself a whole chapter in here. It's called Of Heaven and Earth right here. This is provided by Book Tree Press in San Diego. 1-800-700-TREE. The aliens in the scalpel, Dr. Roger Lear. I told you guys about the implants that move. They're intelligent. They run away from the scalpel and they self-destruct. They're technological. They self-destruct on contact with oxygen. So Dr. Roger Lear on camera shows you that after taking a vial of blood from the person who claims to have an implant in them because they've been abducted, he'll take a vial of blood, keep it warm on the side, extract the implant, and put it in the vial of blood before he opens it. And he can open the membrane sac, and it's a technological device on the inside that doesn't self-destruct because it senses it's still in the blood of the victim. Camouflage through limited disclosure. Read all these in prison. The flying saucers are real. Kehoe. Zechariah Sitchin. I read all the Sitchin books. I don't have them all here, but I read them all. There's Lost Realms. Also, The Serious Mystery, Robert Temple. About the Dogon. Space Travelers and the Genesis of the Human Form. Joan d'Arc. That is a pseudonym. Only my publisher knows who she really is. UFO Crash in Brazil. That's Dr. Roger Lear again. Here's Dr. Roger Lear again. UFOs do not exist. This is the same guy that's pulling the implants out. And remember, I've been telling you since the inception of my channel, the ancient aliens and UFOs are a psyop, 100%. All the activity is in the underworld. Human abduction phenomenon is real, but it ain't aliens abducting these people. There is a breakaway civilization of controllers in our underworld, and they've always been there, and they are human. When the gods return. So I went deep. Into the ancient aliens. These are, guys, you have to understand too. My bibliography that I'm going to show at the end of this video is 1,300 nonfiction books, like I've been showing you, that I researched, read, reread, sometimes read 3 and 4 times, like the Book of Jasher and Jubilees, and I data mined. But I can't possibly show you that many books in this video, so I'm just going through them. So in the course of my studies, I'm going through all kinds of amazing books that cite all these old books too. And here's Dark Star by Andy Lloyd. I read that in prison, and I was like, wow, man, here's a model. This guy shows that there's a whole nother sun in our system that's collapsing, and we can't see it. We can't see it at all. That creates 2 ecliptics. Now I read all about Nemesis Death Star. I read all about the Nemesis theory. There's 2 ecliptics in our system. Then I read Dark Moon. I've always believed that we went to the moon. I always believed that astronauts, I never had a reason not to believe it. How could you psyop 5,000 NASA employees? It's easy. Everybody believes they're doing something real, except for the very few people at the top. This book, Dark Moon, Apollo and the Whistleblowers, opened my eyes. And if that psyop was true, what else was true? Here's Astronomy in the Old Testament. That's me when about a year after I got out of prison, just reading in my library. Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy, Hewitt Brown. This is a really good book too. So I'm going through the astronomy, and by this time, I'm still a Christian in name. I'm still a Christian because of my behavior. I'm still a Christian in the original sense, meaning the golden rule is the only rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But now I'm so much more. My mind has been going in so many different directions now. I no longer have that. I just don't have that Christian tenacity anymore. So much reading. I researched myself right out of that paradigm. Here's some more books. Christopher Knight, Robert Lomas, The Hiram Key. Here's Architecture and Mysticism and Myth. These books are just showing me a whole lot more. Here's Thomas Burgoyne, The Light of Egypt, Science of the Soul and Stars. This is the book that talks about the dark satellite and the ancient ones coming back during the tribulation. Here's The Magus, A Complete System of Occult Philosophy by Francis Barrett. I've talked about this book a lot. Ponder on This is amazing, talking about the former inhabitants of the moon and how when the moon was captured here, it was they descended to earth, and they've been living among us ever since. The magic of jewels and charms. There's Phoenix phenomenon data in this book. Alchemy rediscovered and restored. Biography of Satan. The Book of Magic and Ceremonial Magic. I'm learning all kinds of things. This book shocked me. The book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. What a book, man. Complete History of the Rosicrucian Order. All this was read. The Comte de Saint Germain. The Secret of Kings. This guy here, he kept for a 300-year period. He kept appearing in the courts of Europe. A true mystery. He never aged. The Dragon's Seed. Yeah, this is another Bloodlines book. Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor. It's a Freemasonry book. Egyptian Magic, Wallace Budge. The Great Secret, Maurice Maeterlinck. History of Spiritualism. I believe that's Arthur Conan Doyle. I believe it had 2 volumes. Yeah, there's the other volume. The History of Spiritualism. So I'm slowly waking up. Ralph Waldo Trine. In Tune of the Infinite. The Key to the Tarot. Lessons from the Overseer. The Light of Egypt, Thomas Burgoyne. That's the actual picture of the book covers. This is Thomas Burgoyne about the dark satellite and all kinds of stuff. The Lost Key, an explanation of Masonic symbols, Lost Keys of Freemasonry, Lost Language of Symbolism. Yeah, man, I'm just learning all these things. Here's Franz Hartmann. I've quoted him multiple times. Really, really cheesy book cover. Fantastic book. Magic and Mystery in Tibet. The Magic Bag, The Inner Circle, Teachers of Light, Mark Probert. The Magus, A Complete System of Occult Philosophy, Book 1 and 2. Masonic A to Z book. Mushrooms and Mankind. This book, I gave a copy of this book to Martin Leakey, and he did a video. But it shows early Christianity associated Jesus to the mushroom. All right. The New Revelations, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The Open Conspiracy, What Are We to Do with Our Lives? H.G. Wells. The Origin and Evolution of Freemasonry, another famous author, Churchward. Reincarnation, The Hope of the World. Reprints of Rituals of Old Degrees, Albert Pike, 33rd Degree. Man, you'll find the Phoenix and everywhere. You'll find all kinds of Judeo-Christian programming through all the degrees of Freemasonry. The Secret Doctrine of the Rosicrucians. Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. Yeah, I went into a phase where I was reading all these guys. Secrets Revealed, Clairvoyance, Magic, and Reality of Spirits. That's Ledbetter. The Rosicrucian Cosmo Conception. I had this book for a long time. Symbols and Legends of Freemasonry. Theosophy and the Secret Doctrine. H.P. Blavatsky. What I don't have here is Isis Unveiled and The Secret Doctrine, which I have in my library. I read both of those books as well when I became very familiar with the false chronology of the occultists, which is the same chronology that Graham Hancock and all these authors are buying into. They have painted it under the uniformitarian Younger Dryas period, but actually it's more than that. It's the occult Golden Dawn chronology of the world of Atlantis, 10,000, 9,000 BC, and all that. So what these guys have done is literally taken the Golden Dawn occult chronology and the uniformitarian BS chronology and merged them together, and it's created a whole new genre, and they sell millions of books because publishers love to push that material. The Graham Hancock material, the Andrew Collins material, the Robert Bauval material, all these guys are in on that same shit. It's all a bogus bullshit, easily proven, easy to show chronology of the world that's absolutely false. It doesn't dismiss all their research. It dismisses their chronological material. So in going through all this material and going through all this massive, immense amount of books I'm reading, and I'm taking all these notes, man, I go into the specialist literature. The Gods of Eden. William Brambley is a military historian, and I learn all kinds of things about UFO encounters and strange stuff in the ancient world. America BC, another historian, Barry Fell, shows all kinds of contact with the Romans, the Jews, the Phoenicians, the Libyans, every Egyptians, everybody was in ancient America traveling. I come into contact with William Corliss, and you know I have the source book projects books back here. William Corliss, Handbook of Puzzling Artifacts, blew my mind. I'm literally being shaken to my core on all my biblical beliefs. Everything is showing me that the Bible is just a small part of the whole. Archaeological anomalies, small artifacts, strange artifacts, a source from ancient man, unknown earth, a handbook of geological enigmas, maps of the ancient sea kings by Charles Hapgood, shows me all kinds of stuff that doesn't even make sense. How do we know all this stuff back then? How is it the Bible doesn't show any of these things that I'm finding by all these other authors? Path of the Pole, Charles Hapgood. And of course, Thor Heyerdahl, who breaks down the Anunnaki histories far better than anybody. Because Thor Heyerdahl, he just reduces things to their lowest common denominators. He goes through and shows they're just mariners from the sea. The whole Anunnaki story is cargo cult. And it's just a bunch of mariners from the sea who left a cataclysm-torn homeland. They were mostly all male. They showed up on ships and they integrated with a society, and they took the daughters as their own, so they could have their own sons who looked very different than they did, because they're tapping into a whole different genetic stock. They were survivors regarded as gods. That's all they were. Long-bearded Caucasians that showed up in a non-Caucasian world. And next thing we know, we have that in those days there were giants, mighty men. Men were of renown when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men. Over and over, Thor Heyerdahl breaks these things down, shows you the ancient traditions, myths, legends, and lore all reveal that we're dealing with cargo cult phenomenon, not gods from the skies. Lucretius on the nature of the universe, where I pulled out some good Phoenix data. Ancient Infrastructure, William Corliss again. Ancient Man, I've seen that book. Ancient Structures, Science Frontiers, Some Anomalies. Here's Gerald Massey's Lectures. I read that in prison. Forbidden Archaeology. We already know all the strange stuff that's in this book. None of it's in the Bible. So in the course, around 2002, 2003, and 2004, I'm now very well versed on ancient history, on philosophy, on all the biblical materials, all biblical studies. I'm really well versed, so I'm ready for some of these deeper authors. I'm ready for some of this material that's going to blow my mind. Darwin's Mistake. Critical analysis of the uniformitarian theory, showing how it cannot be true. The Evolution Cruncher, 1,000 pages of data showing that relative dating methods, all the dating methods used by scientists are total BS. All the times that science has been caught trying to propagate a fraud and then gets caught doing it. Yeah, trying to show it's ridiculous. All the unusual things that have been found that cannot be true if the scientific model is true. But we found them, and there's pictures of them in this book. Worlds and Collisions, Immanuel Velikovsky's material. So these books are, I'm understanding that uniformitarian chronology is wrong. Golden Dawn Society chronology is BS. It's a fiction. I'm learning that the biblical chronology is wrong. I'm going through this material and I'm realizing that, man, there's a huge error in the world's understanding of how history unfolded. And it's an error that's being created. It's not natural. So I'm reading Velikovsky and he's putting things back together, and I'm finding, wow, there's a lot of chronological data in here. I start documenting it all. H.G. Wells' A Short History of the World is another one of my sources. It's fantastic. Annals of the World, Archbishop James Usher. He's using two different systems two different calendars, the Anno Mundi and the BC AD calendar, and he's getting his dates wrong on one calendar, but he's getting it right on the other. And I had to figure out why, and I did. So I started documenting things on two different systems as well, correcting the mistakes. E. Raymond Capt helped me more with missing links discovered in the Syrian tablets. And then L.A. Waddell blew the lid off, because I had been assuming that Egypt was super ancient, because that's what the claims are. Even academia claims it is. And then Professor L.A. Waddell publishes 4 or 5 books where he tears apart the official academic chronology and shows Egypt's no older than Babylon, Assyria, Elam, Harappa. It's not old. It doesn't even have its antiquity is pretended. So, yeah, it's just L.A. Waddell's material is so awesome. Hamlet's Mill also had me understanding that Hamlet's Mill, this is what Hamlet's Mill did for me. It woke me up to the fact that all these big numbers that I had been finding and all these traditions, legends, because my notes were thousands of pages of notes, and I'm finding all these things in there, and in those notes, it's amazing. Hold on. In those notes, I'm finding that these numbers are references to calendars and sequential events. There weren't 432,000 dead men at the banquet hall to Valhalla. There aren't 10,800 bricks in the altar of agony. Yeah. So now Hamlet's Mill's got me realizing, whoa, these numbers are all calendrical references, and I'm starting to now realize that we have made a critical error in assuming that the ancients were primitive, and we're recording some BS because these numbers are highly specific. The Biblical Flood and the Ice Epic, another book that had me added more chronological material. Ages in Chaos. This book, Children of the Sun, is amazing. W.J. Perry wrote this book, Children of the Sun. The entire here it is right here, W.J. Children of the Sun. The entire 551 pages is all about what the world was like. All these dynasties all over the world up until a single event eliminated every one of them. Every ruling dynasty in the world fell. Every civilization collapsed in the world about 1688 BC. He's 1 year off, but he did say about. 1687 BC, the Phoenix caused the Ogygian destruction. I got so much documented on that. It's not the subject matter here, but again, chronology becomes something that I'm starting to pay a lot more attention to. Also, Uriel's machine. So Uriel's machine also shows those amazing numbers, and Enoch comes back to the forefront in a lot of traditions in the UK about Enoch as well in this book. H.G. Wells' Short History of the World, Sex Symbols in the Stars, a lot of chronological data. This book shouldn't even be here because I haven't read it yet. Secrets of Time. This is another one. This is what began my chronological analysis of my entire database. Stephen Jones is a biblical chronologist who studied the book of Jasher, Old Testament, New Testament, book of Jubilees, and the Assyrian eponyms, and he put together his own chronology of the world. Stephen Jones is the one to get credit for the original Archaix Chronology as when it was begun, because I was able to use Stephen Jones' data and compare it to other data sets later on, such as the 138-year periodicity of the Phoenix. You can take a clear plastic sheet of 138-year periods and overlay it over the chronology that Stephen Jones published, and they're 100% perfect. 3895 BC is year 1 of the Anno Mundi calendar. The 1656 year becomes 2239 BC. 552 years later becomes the Ogygian deluge.
1687, which in the biblical material and in Stephen Jones' writings is also 1687 BC, but it was rocks falling from the sky and the sun stopping so Joshua could, so the Israelites could defeat the Canaanites after Dinah was abducted by the men of Shechem. It's amazing, so amazing. Geoffrey of Monmouth, History of the Kings of Britain. Terrible chronology, but I derive some value from it. So by now, I still haven't written my own books. I'm still just in research mode by this time. But I've got a really profound chronology building. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second before I return to this, because I haven't checked my chat since I started this video 2 hours and minutes ago. Wow. So, thank you guys for joining me. Hey, Abelman. It's Donna Abelman. She's contributed a lot to the Archaix library. All right. Hello, Jahara. I see some of my moderators popping in. All right. Let's continue. Let me check. Make sure I'm still got some juice on this. Or do I need to? Oh, I'm still really good. All right. So let's get back into it. Go back to sharing my screen. So in starting to putting all my notes in chronological order now, I'm also reading a bunch of books. I took an interest in Atlantis like everybody else did. When the Sky Fell. Collapse of the Vapor Canopy. When the Sky Fell, right here by Rand and Rose Flemeth. This is a book about Atlantis. Here's Atlantis Beneath the Ice. I totally disagree with it. There's no Atlantis in the Arctic or Antarctica. The Destruction of Atlantis. This is Frank Joseph. Really good material in here about the Sea Peoples Federation from the Atlantic. Atlantis, the Andes Solution, J.M. Allen, probably one of the most profound and most accurate Atlantis books ever. Shows that Atlantis was in the 13th century BC and used every single fact from Plato to show that. It's impossible for Atlantis to have been 9,600 BC. Graham Hancock needs to read this book. Atlantis in America, The Shadow of Atlantis, The History of Atlantis, Lewis Spence, The Problem of Atlantis. Yeah, I've read all these books, guys. Atlantis, Mother of Empires. Robert B. Stacy Judd is so good. I have most of these books right here in my library right now. The Atlantis Myth, Faber. And then we got this guy. This guy made millions telling everybody through his fear porn that the Mayan long count ended in 2012. He had everybody believe it. There's so many authors and people on YouTube today who fell for this, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about that they fell for the 2012 BS. Jose Argyle. Oh, his books were so convincing. No facts in there. He put visuals and opinions and wrote obiter dictum, but there was just really no facts, no bibliography that supported anything that he was trying to push as far as the Mayan long count ending in 2012. It's right here. The math doesn't add up, as I've shown multiple times in charts, published books, and in videos. But he put these two books out, Time in the Technosphere and The Mayan Factor. That shit didn't come true. That dude's pretty much just disappeared. What does he care? He got your millions. There's Plato. Timaeus and Critias. This is where the Atlantis story is. Ignatius Donnelly, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World is so good. It's edited by Egerton Sykes. It's so good. That's where you learn about the institution of ancient sacrifice, putting the squid on the victim's head and all that. Atlantis in America is another good one. I read all these in prison. Atlantis in the Kingdom of the Neanderthals. Colin Wilson. Man, Colin Wilson. Look at this. Look at this garbage. 100,000 years of lost history. Colin Wilson, sit down somewhere, man. You're becoming irrelevant with that BS. Atlantis in America. Lewis Spence. The Problem of Lemuria, Lewis Spence, Survivors of Atlantis, Their Impact on World Culture, Frank Joseph. What a good book. Yeah, man. I don't agree with everything everybody says, and neither should you. Neither should you. So, I'm doing all this research on chronology from 2002, 2003, all the way up till 2016 when I was released from prison. Yeah, it's a long time, like 13, 14 years of just hardcore putting all my notes back into chronological order. And I'm discovering all kinds of things like the Phoenix phenomenon, the Nemesis X object periodicity of 792 years, 138 years for the Phoenix. Phoenix cycles 552 years. Cursed Earth cycles are 414 years. The dark satellite 394.5 years. And I'm learning all these things about the Mayan long count, day count system, shars. All these things I learned in prison. They're not new discoveries. They're just amazing to me. And I researched myself right out of the paradigm of Christianity. I still obey the golden rule, which is the only rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. But I now realize that the original sayings of Jesus was a Greek masterpiece. It was later incorporated into the Judeo-Christian paradigm, turned into history. The Word was made flesh. And that's where that's when the church stole their power to control you. That they don't have that power when you realize that the teachings of Jesus are spiritual because you're a spirit. You're just borrowing an avatar. But once you buy into the idea that the Jesus story must be world history, you attach it to a construct that is fallen. This entire world is fallen. There's never been a golden age and there never will be. There's nothing but cycles of destruction here. Yeah, it's crazy. So, which leads me to a whole nother body of literature. While I was in prison, doing all this research in historical antiquities and in chronology, I also read books about the human mind and the power of the human mind. But it took a lot of books before I realized just how dynamic our existence really is. What it really meant, in that more than 50% of our existence is mental. It's totally mental. And this changes what we are and who we are and what we're doing here and where we're going. And I realize that true spirituality doesn't have anything to do with this construct. It has nothing to do with the predator versus prey ecosphere that we found ourselves in. The historicizing of literary masterpieces and spiritual documents that were never meant to be believed historically anyway. Church did that. The church did that. The church did that to exert their power over you. Not just the church, but governments, institutions, all of them. Cosmic consciousness. All these books I read in prison. Ernest Holmes, Creative Mind. Ernest Holmes, Creative Mind and Success. That's 1902. The Creative Process in the Individual, Thomas Troward. The Door Lectures on Mental Science, Thomas Troward. The Hidden Power, Thomas Troward. I cite him a lot. How to Develop Personal Magnetism and Healing Powers. The Master Key, How to Live a Life with Power and Control. Reading all these books, Charles Haanel, Mental Chemistry, The Path to Prosperity, James Allen, The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace Wattles, Thought Power, Anne Besant, Vril or Vital Magnetism. That's a montage by Paul Tice. Wide Awake: The Miracle of Spiritual Breakthrough. The reason these books are extremely valuable, the reason these books is because they showed that, man, if the majority of our existence is mental, then what is the rest of this stuff? What is all this other stuff going on in our life? It's all background programming, but it's fixed. Therefore, chronology is able to find out all kinds of things with exactitude instead of using the plus or minus 500 years of the uniformitarians. Yeah, if you're going to deal with indefinites, you're never going to be able to know anything with certainty. So this is the last file of books. Like I said, I can only show you so many books, but my bibliography, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, is 1,300 nonfiction books that I read and studied before I was ever released from prison. And before I was released from prison, I already had 4 books published. But I read Liber Chaos of Peter Carroll, Discovery of Nothing, Lyle Jacobson. These are deep books about our world is not what you think it is. That's what these books, that's the theme of all these books. Our world is not what you think. The Book of the Damned, the whole Charles Fort collection right there. Yeah. If these things are true, and he documented 500 years of scientific reports and periodicals and eyewitness accounts, if all these things are true, then our world is not what you think. Yeah. Here's a really good book. It's John Keeley, Edgar Casey, Dale Pond, Rudolf Steiner, Nikola Tesla, The Physics of Love. This book is a massive compendium of all their writings, showing you our world is not what you think. I read that in prison. I also read this by Dale Pond, Universal Laws Never Before Revealed. He's literally just, he's telling us, he's going deeper onto Keeley's discoveries and research. But it's like sympathetic vibratory physics. The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. Here's another one that just blew my mind. The Cosmic Pulse of Life, Trevor James Constable. I've cited him a few times. Also, Paul LaViolette. I read this book. I had to wrestle through this book. Subquantum Kinetics, A Systems Approach to Physics and Cosmology. The more I read and the more I data mined, the more I realized our world is not what you think. The Odic Force, Reichenbach. This is a great book, Joan d'Arc. I don't even know who she is. That's a pseudonym. My publisher knows who she is because this is a book tree book. This book is phenomenal. It's an overview of all the mysteries of our world that show you our world isn't anything like we're taught it is. Our world's totally opposite. Phenomenal world. Quest for the Invisibles, also another book showing you that our world is not the one that we learn about in school. Basic Code of the Universe. I've read 2 different Massimo Citro books. It's deep. Here's a physicist that's talking about simulation theory, hologram theory. Here it is. Reality is but a dream, a multicultural exploration. Helen D. Vandeman is, I'm going to have to say, she's the deepest female author I've come into contact with. Helen Vandeman. Recently I quoted her 3 times on Twitter. And of course, my buddy, P.D. Alspinski, Tertium Organum, right here. Right here. Amazing stuff on future past phenomena and the construct itself. So, this is the book I showed you earlier, The Phoenix Solution, Secrets of a Lost Civilization, Alan Alford. He's personal friends with Paul Tice. That's my publisher on the left when he started his publishing company. That's Paul Tice. Paul was the personal videographer for Zechariah Sitchin. There he is right there on the left holding the camera. Knows him well. Paul was taken aback when he first saw my manuscripts. He told me straight up in letters, I've never seen anything this comprehensive. I've never seen anybody cover information this Lost Scriptures of Giza. I got to publish it. So he did. Then I sent him another one on the Phoenix phenomenon on When the Sun Darkens. And he said he had to publish that because he's never even heard of the Phoenix cycle, didn't know anything about all this stuff. And my bibliographies are extensive, very hard to argue against. Then I put out a third book, Anunnaki Homeworld. And man, he was taken aback. He was offended because he was Zecharia Sitchin's friend, and he had been to all these places and he was offended that my Anunnaki Homeworld book corrected the chronology of Sitchin, corrected it, showed it was totally wrong. But he read it and he looked up my sources because he had a bunch of them in his library, in his and in his bookstore, and he came back and sent me a publishing contract and said, "Man, this is genius." This is what he told me in letters. He said, "Man, this is genius. He says, I know that if you sat down with Zechariah and showed him this, that he would agree with you." And it doesn't change his overall premise. It just changes. It's taking it out of the context of hundreds of thousands of years and showing that it all happened in 58 centuries. So anyway, Mr. Alfred right here died under mysterious circumstances. We don't know. But he wrote this book, The Phoenix Solution. All right. And you can always go to www.thebooktree.com and see you see Jason, they got a special place on the website called Jason's Bookshelf. It's the books I just showed you. Jason's Bookshelf are all the Booktree books that are published that I read in prison and that I endorse. Yeah, it's huge. It's like 5 sections. It's huge. It's called Jason's Bookshelf. I read all those books that are on that bookshelf. Booktree publishes a lot. Most of them are all reprints from way before World War I. So before I got out of prison, I had already typed this. Before I got out, already typed. These are all the books right here that I had studied in prison on astronomy. Here they are. A lot of them. Here is extraterrestrial theory and history. I didn't even show you a fraction of the books that are on this list. Here's extraterrestrial history continued. Here are books on physics and quantum theory I studied in prison. All these. Here's archaic cosmological epics in text. Hesiod, Theognis, Natural History, Lucretius, Pindar, Atrahasis, Enuma Elish, Epic of Gilgamesh, the Vedas, Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Popol Vuh, Beowulf, the Odyssey, Iliad, Aeneid, Tales from Ovid, Metamorphosis. That's not all. I got another list here in a minute. Here are Great Pyramid and Gazan studies. All these books on the Great Pyramid. Ancient history and archaeology is a huge section right here at the bottom. Goes to the next page. This entire page is ancient history and archaeology, and most of these books that are on this I didn't even show you in today's presentation because I just don't have the I don't have the time to show you all these. All these were read in prison. This is my bibliography from prison before my release. All these were read, data mined, and in some cases reread. This is still, here's a third page. Ancient history and archaeology. This is my education before I was released. Many of these books are in my published books. Here's another page, but it ends toward the bottom. Ancient history and archaeology just keeps going on. Now, modern AD history starts at the bottom. It too is pretty sizable. All this is modern AD history. Oh, Jesus Goes to Hollywood. Told you about that book, 1421, the year China discovered America. Futurist theory and prophecy. All these books on the bottom. A lot of Nostradamus books. I've studied every Nostradamus book I could get. Look how many of them are down there. Now here's the next page. All these are Nostradamus books. All these books are about the future or prophecy. Mythology and traditions section. Look at this. Starts right here. I read a lot of Native American stuff. I got a whole bunch of books on Native American traditions and beliefs. All this is mythology and traditions too, right here. This is my prison bibliography of 1,300 nonfiction books that I studied and data mined before my release in 2016. This list existed by the time I had my 4th book published in 2016. Mysticism, Magic, and the Occult. Mysticism, Magic, and the Occult right here. All these books were studied as well. Here's all the books I read on giants. I got more to add to this list. Gnostic texts and studied. Here's all the Gnostic sources I read when I was in prison. The Secret Books of the Egyptian Gnostics, Divine Pymander, the Nag Hammadi Library, the Gnosis, Ancient Wisdom in the Christian Scriptures, the Western Way, the Hermetic Tradition, Alchemy Rediscovered and Restored, Pistis Sophia, the Wisdom of the Knowing Ones, the Way of Hermes, Mystics and Mysteries of Alexandria by the famous Manly P. Hall. Here's biblical reference books. These are all Bible reference books I read. Most of these are gigantic encyclopedias and Bible dictionaries that I read. I used to read Bible dictionary from A to Z. I wanted to know everything. Numbers and mathematics books I read. You know I read those. Philosophy. I went through a philosophy phase. I got Plato in there and Aristotle. I got Aeschylus, Niccolo Machiavelli. I got 3 books by him. Descartes, Thomas Paine, Sun Tzu, Albert Camus. Let's see. Friedrich Nietzsche, 3 books by him. No, I got 4 books. I even have one by Albert Einstein called The World as I See It. Manly P. Hall, Will Durant. I got 2 Paul Tice books in there, Kim Zetter, W.J. Perry, and Shellhorn. Oh, wait a minute. I shouldn't have done it. I got also Lost Books of the Bible and Extraterrestrial Texts. I put extraterrestrial. It's how did I not see that before? It's Lost Books of the Bible and Extra Canonical. Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher, Book of Jubilees, Apocalypse of Baruch, Gospel of Barnabas, the Archaix volume, 6th and 7th books of Moses, the Apocrypha, Lost Books of the Bible and Forgotten Books of Eden, the Great and Distinguished Words of God. That's a gigantic book. The Old Testament Pseudepigrapha, an introduction to the complete Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Dead Sea Scrolls by Michael Wise, Martin Abegg, and Edward Cook. Secret Societies and Orders. Secret Societies and Orders. All right. Well, I'm trying to abbreviate this. You guys can screenshot this and look at it on your own. There's Secret Societies and Orders, a bunch of them. Ancient Symbolism. All these books are reference books on ancient symbols. Most of them are in my library right now. Science of the Mind. I just showed you a bunch of these books, but I didn't show you all of them. Here they are. Science of the Mind. American Concepts. I don't have very many of those, but I do have good ones. Evolution and Creationism. Religious and Spiritual Miscellaneous Books. And here's just general reference, books I read and researched. Now, this is the typed up list. This is the typed list that when I still had a typewriter. My last couple of years in prison, I didn't have one anymore. So here is uncategorized works. That means that the categories you just saw, are incomplete. Every category you just saw, I have to add all these books. There is a massive amount of books to add because I've only shown you about half the list. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Look at these books. None of these books are in those categories I just showed you. All these books are new. Some of them are massive. Told you I've read and sometimes reread 1,300 nonfiction books before I got out of prison. That's what this list is. This is unorganized. None of these are on the list. I hadn't had time to retype the list, or I just haven't done it. All these more, a whole bunch more Nostradamus books, Great Pyramid books, not books on the Gnosis, comparative mythology, philosophy, archaeology, all kinds of stuff, guys. Let's go to another page. Here's a whole nother one right here. Jesus Papers, Christ Conspiracy, The Lost Years, Pirates and the Lost Templar Fleet, Golden Treasury of Patristic Quotations. It just goes on, guys. All these books. None of them are in those categories because I read all these after I typed up those categories. And this is where the handwritten parts begin. Now I no longer have a typewriter at the top of this page. Now, from my last 2 years in prison, look at this list. I'm going deep on all kinds of concepts. All these are handwritten editions because I'd already typed up my list. I no longer have a typewriter. I'm now writing by hand every book I read as I read them. Here's the next list. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Here's referenced, but yeah, this is out of order. This is referenced. Okay, this is referenced but not read. Okay, these are not among the 1,300 books that I read in prison, but I had to cover copyrights. So this page here are books that I've actually quoted because I saw what they said in other books, but I haven't actually read these books. But you have to also understand that was only true in 2016. It's not true anymore, such as The Giant Cities of Bashan by J.L. Porter right here, 1873. I have that book in my library right now. Stranger Than Science, I have that book in my library right now. Giants, The Vanished Race of Mighty Men, I have that. Roy Norville, I have that book. The Jewish Encyclopedia, I have the entire 1902 edition of the Jewish Encyclopedia right there. So this was true in 2016, but I've made efforts to acquire all the books that are on this list, and I have over half of them in my library now. This book, right, I do not have half of these books, but I haven't read them either. Well, I have read, that was 2016. I have read about half of them now. So here's the handwritten complete. Look, here's the handwritten packet completed. So when this started, what you're looking at the top of the page is my referencing system. On the left, you'll see 4/19/2015. You will see an 8934 next to that. And you see the word begun. What you're looking at is my referencing system. This is at the top of the bill. So on April 19th, 2015, my 8,934th day incarcerated, I began this page. This is my third Chronicon packet. This is my bibliography. I have already sent home I've already sent home the original Chronicon, all my research notes, all my bibliographic notes, and I sent 3 packets home already. So I have the original and 3 packets in Dad's possession already for the Chronicon project. This is chronologically putting the whole world together, independent of all my research Dad had taken home years earlier. So in my referencing system, it says final compilation. Final compilation begun 9,034. So that's my 9,034th day incarcerated. I was released after 9,545 days to give you an idea. So here's all new books. All these handwritten books are new books that are not a part of my original bibliography. These were all read and researched by me after April 19th, 2015. I got out in December 2016. So this is over a year. This is a year and 8 months before my release from prison. I read all these books and data mined them, and I sent all the research home to dear old dad. Dear old dad picked them up. Here's a whole separate page right here. All these are handwritten. All this was researched in 2015 and 2016 before I went home. All this too. This is when I'm seriously putting the chronology of the world together. I've been working on it for over a decade at this time. Excuse me. I think there's one more page. Yeah. Nope, still another page. There's Aliens in the Scalpel right there I just told you about. Cradle of Civilization, Samuel Noah Kramer. I got it on my shelf right back behind me. Kon-Tiki, Tigris Expedition. I got those all on my shelf. Oh, I still got another page. This is all... Okay, here is bibliography. 693 works cited. Sent home December 2013. Okay, this is still... Okay, I must have... Okay, I didn't have my typewriter at this time, December 2013, because it's handwritten. So this should have been inserted earlier. You haven't seen these books either, but it should have been inserted earlier. I showed you this page out of order. This was before the 2015 insert. This is the 2013 insert right here. Oh, got another page. This is still part of the 2013 insert. And another page. It never ends, guys. Just like my research, it never ends. These are all research in 2015 and 2016 before my release in December. My God. I've totally underestimated. There's still more pages. In Search of Planet Vulcan. Temple at the Center of Time. Wow. Man, I've read so many books I've forgotten about. But I got notes out of all these books. I don't read books without taking notes. I got that. Atlantis, the Eighth Continent. I got that on my shelf. This is the last page now. Here it is, last page. Just a bunch of unorganized. This was all mid to late 2016. This is before I went home. All these books were read right before I went home. There they are. Whew. Man, we made it. We made it. And I will show you now. You see all these folders? This doesn't show. This is my prison research. All these charts were drawn in prison. I drew these, pen and ink. These are all my chronological notes. Chronicon is all in these folders. You can't see them all. You really can't see them all, but they're there. All this is prison research that was put in chronological order. This is all the stuff after I spent about 2 years putting thousands of pages into Microsoft Word files. Some of these are big. These stacks aren't small. That's all notes from prison. These are all notes from prison. These are all folders full of chronological notes from prison. And about 400 charts. You can see some right here in the corner, you can see chronology. If I can blow it up, show it, yeah. Barely see it. Yeah, these are all chronological notes from prison. I was getting more organized. I drew hundreds of charts. All those charts were pen and ink. Jamie Robbins came to my place and went through my boxes. I got boxes of these guys. I've got boxes and boxes of handwritten notes right here of all kinds of really fascinating, interesting things I haven't even discussed with you guys on YouTube yet. I got amazing stuff. Most of the things I've talked about on YouTube are in my Microsoft Word file notes, but the things that I wrote down, we haven't even done videos and all this. I told you guys I've always got 500 more videos in me. I've got some awesome, amazing stuff that I need to share with you guys. I just need the time. I got Cole on the team. He's gonna help me do a lot of things to stop. I got Big John's about to start on a new project. It's just there's all kinds of things that I've got more people helping me to get prepared to do things. But anyway, that was Jamie Robbins. You saw his hand. I thought I had a picture in here of him, but you know, nobody wants to look at Jamie. Oh, I'm gonna pay for that later. I'm gonna pay for that. Man, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So yeah, man, you guys can see that it took a long time and it took a bunch of research for me to realize the gospel is not the gospel is not historical, it is literary, and that Christianity does qualify as a cult. And apologetics is nothing but the damage control of the church. That's all it is. Ask Wes Huff. And then the Turin shroud, clinging to something out of desperation, wanting something to be true. I mean, the facts are contorted and many people are guilty of that. The Turin shroud is the shroud of a Norman knight. Watch my video. I lay out all the facts of how the Norman knights were buried. Yeah, it's and it's so crazy, man, that in reading and researching and delving into all this, I find out, man, the Bible is full of a lot of falsity in order to promote things as fact. And then I read just the opposite. It's like we're living in the photo negative of a real reality. And I'll read things that I'm told are fiction, like Ketub and Necronomicon and the Light of Egypt of mystic Charles Burgoyne and Enema Elish. And I read all these things like, wow, man. So we're told this is satanic, and we're told this is a lie, but you find actual golden truths in this material. And then I'm told this right here is the word of God, and this is the truth, and this is what you need to believe. But I find out that every bit of it is a construction built off the backs of people who were whipped until they admitted they had done something they did not do, so they could be burned at the stake to give church authority over the people. What? Yeah, man. It's through all this research that I found something no one else in the world is brought to modern attention, but it was known in ancient times. The 138-year periodicity of the phoenix, the vapor canopy, the collapse of the vapor canopy being the Great Flood, vapor canopy conditions and volcanism creating giants. The oldest surviving texts in the world tell us the story of phoenix resets. Man, I still got the Archaix challenge in there. Why all these ancient texts mention 138, 414, 552, 690, 1242, 1656, 2070, 2484, 2760. I'm still waiting for somebody to answer if history is fake. Then how come all these different ancient texts written in different languages, found in different areas of the world from different time periods, have all these numbers, and every single one of them is divisible by 138. I'm still waiting for that. It's by virtue of being able to I'm in prison, guys. I was in prison. So I was able to tune out the entire world and focus on the data. And maybe I'm gifted, maybe I have a modicum gift of pattern recognition. I don't know, but I was able to see everything that didn't fit and to remove it. And what was left behind was this beautiful chronology of the world that I have been challenging you guys all the time to use your calculators and verify. Don't take my word for it. Remember, if something is true, it will always be seen from multiple different vantage points. That's why if the Archaix chronology is wrong and you want to debunk it, then it should be very easy for you to do. Very easy. So it was in this plethora of material. I think I used that word earlier. Pull that out the field. That we find that the Great Pyramid seems to be a lithic representation of what would be three-dimensional holography, showing calendars. It's almost as if the Great Pyramid was used with programming that was based off calendrics, and that we learned that the Anunnaki were just humans, this cargo cult phenomenon, which collapses the entire ancient aliens paradigm. We learned that the Sphinx wasn't even a lion. That's part of the patriarchal takeover. No, it was a dog. It was Anubis, guardian of the Gate of Rostal. Gate of Rostal is underneath the Giza complex. Man, we learn the true histories of the Titans and the giants, and that they were just normal humans in different stages because of ecospheres. They grew to different sizes, different time periods. And when one ecosphere collapsed, it didn't mean the occupants died. It just meant over a period of 2 or 3 years, the animals that were being born were smaller than their mothers and fathers. The plants that were germinating were smaller than the plants of the previous epoch, because the air pressure had changed, the volcanism, ambient radiation, ultraviolet light filtering in through a vapor canopy, all that changed. All our myths, traditions, and legends are teaching us the truth. We've only been seeing it through the eyes of primitivism, but they were very advanced. So through the Archaix research, we now understand that these magnificent timelines in the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Egyptian were just normal. They're absolutely normal. They are day count and lunar systems. But modern scholarship is imposing modern timekeeping systems onto the template of the past, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, yeah, I could go on and on and on and on. I'm not going to. I'm going to stop this video. I could literally just go on and on and on about what this data means, but that's not the subject matter of this video. The subject matter of this video from the very beginning was me telling you that I'm going to tell you and share with you exactly how the Archaix database was put together. And how all this, you got to understand, I've been publishing books for 20 years. Not one date in any of my books has changed. And yet I'm still able, with a calculator, to show you in video after video after video all these amazing patterns going back and forth. It doesn't matter if it's a cross-calendrical parallel. It doesn't matter if it's a synchronicity. If it doesn't matter if it's an alternative timeline which has the same events at the same years for different empires. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a palindrome that is seen in the calendar where events can fold on each other like a matrix. It's beautiful patterning that's going on. It doesn't matter if I show you with a calculator that this event attached to this event, and the distance between those events is 1.61 times more that distance into the future from the second event. We have the exact same event of occurring again. It doesn't matter if I show it in pi, phi, or curvature. I'm always going to show these proportions back and forth, because not one single year are we off in the Archaix chronology. Welcome to the year 5919. It doesn't mean the world is 5,919. It means that the cataclysm that destroyed the world and caused the survivors to believe that there was a new heavens and a new earth, because the world has been destroyed so perfectly. They literally saw a new heavens and a new earth. Flooding, continents moving, volcanic resurfacing, the whole stellosphere changing, new constellations, it all changed for them. So it was a new heavens and a new earth, and it started this timeline 5919 years ago, 5,919 years ago, which was the year 3895 BC. But the Archaix chronology begins 1344 years before that. 1,344 years before was 52 39 BC, the beginning of the Anuna nerve system of 600-year periods, which is 216,000 turnings of the stars, which is the number found in the Sumerian calendars, the Babylonian calendars, the Hindu Sanskrit versions of calendars, and in the Mayan calendars. We have the same base denominators. Everything makes sense. All the mysteries that I show with a calculator that go forward and backward in time, every one of them are perfect because we're not missing a single year. We're missing histories. We're missing historical narratives. We're missing what happened at different times, but we're not missing the year. The year is 5919, and it just happens to be 2025 on the Anno Domini calendar, which is unimportant. We're in the year 5919, and we've got 15 more years before the next Phoenix phenomenon event, which is there's only four powers of events. There's real minor and local, there's regional and semi-minor, there's devastation on one hemisphere, and there's total systemic collapse. Those are the four magnitudes of the Phoenix phenomenon. We're about to hit the third. 2178 AD is the fourth, and you already know what happens, Archaix veterans. But again, I'm meandering. We can't go on. We can't turn this into a whole bunch of historical lessons. The subject matter was to show you how I put all this together, how long it took, show you the books that did it, show you my bibliography, and I'm done. I'm done. And we have a word from our sponsor.
Hi there. My name is Nadine Johnson. I'm a naturopathic doctor at thrivenaturallywellness.com. I'm here to help you with natural solutions to your health issues. I help you critically assess what's going on. In other words, I help you cut through the BS. I also specialize in connective tissue disorders. You can reach me at thrivenaturallywellness.com. Thanks.